Hello, everybody. Uh, Thank you for joining this session and very welcome to our next segment of DevFest 2020. It has been a nice journey altogether since yesterday. It has been long, and I hope it has been full of learning and full of excitement for you guys. We had exciting speakers yesterday. We had exciting workshop yesterday. We had demonstrations yesterday, and today again we have the full packed agenda with many speakers who will enlighten our thoughts in many different ways. We have carefully crafted the agenda in such a way that we touch base different aspect of technology, different aspect of social attribute to that technology and whatnot. So today's this session right now is very interesting. Since morning we have been talking more about tech, learnings, certifications, career. Now we are now going to touch base with some social aspect of technology. So the topic for this session is artificial intelligence and social welfare of nation, particularly developing nations and any other kind of impact that it may have on different nations category. We will talk about this. We will get insights around this, and for that we have a very special guest. Sitesh Srivastav, who is a product manager, program manager. He has worked in diverse portfolio, and the most interesting part is he's a package of so many things. He has worked as a radio jockey. He's also a good admirer of art, and he can also be considered as a social think tank. So I would like to invite him and on the stage. Apart from Sitesh, we have Ram, who is organizer of GDG Cloud Toronto, who will be joining the session as well. And then we have Eric, who is working in IT, and he's a senior professional, and he will be also adding his thoughts so that we get the understanding in a wider perspective from each one's different area of working. We perceive certain information in different way. So let's see how we all come together and talk about the artificial intelligence and social welfare of nations and its correlation. Is it related? Is it not related? We will talk about it. Um, so may we have our guest on the stage? Thank you,
Thank you.
Siddesh. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the session. Hi, Rick. Hi, Ram. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you so much
Great.
for joining this session. And I believe we all are joining from different time zone. We have people here joining from EST time zone, GMT time zone, South Africa time zone, and then we have from Indian time zone as well. So it's a pretty, I mean,
Yes,
it's
of
interesting
course.
that we were, yeah, it is interesting that we were able to find a common
It's
time zone where we all are able to speak together across the globe. So that's very interesting. Before we start with our actual agenda and the topic of the day to discuss, may I ask our eminent panelists to introduce themselves, tell a little bit about them so that our audience knows who are they and they get familiar with your profile and try to learn more from you. So, Sitesh, I will go with you.
thank you, Vimal, and thank you, Ram. Welcome, Eric. It's good to see you after a long time. A little bit about myself. Been into the information technology that we call today industry. I joined it almost little more than 20 years when it was not categorized in India as an industry back then. It was a nascent technological field. So many technologies coming in those days. From that time till today, I have been traversing this industry from India, then to United Kingdom, then to Japan for a very long time, and then to Singapore, and then again a very long time in South Africa, the Rainbow Nation, where I happened to meet Eric in Durban, my loveliest city, one of my loveliest city. And it has been a very interesting journey. And I'm sure as we progress in today's session, we will discuss how this technological wave or technological storm is, engulfing our planet. Are we socially aware what we are doing? Are we socially aware about our governmental policies, and do we know, do we have some checks and balances? And that is what is my little brief, and that is what I am here for today. And we will have lovely session, I'm sure about it.
Thank you, Sitesh, for introducing and telling about yourself. And welcome to our session. I'm pretty sure we will love your thoughts. Yeah, Eric, maybe you can tell our audience a little bit about your background, from where you come, and then so that they're much aware about our panelists.
Sure, Vimal, thank you so much, and thanks for all the organizers for this opportunity. Look, I'm in the consumer electronics industry, sales, and also the technology side. So there's a lot of the products that we're selling in terms of that involves AI and also machine learning and so forth. For some time now, I've been having a lot of interest in terms of data, big data management, and so forth, and I plan to broaden in terms of everything that I do on a daily basis. I study and learn. Hence why I was very keen to join this platform, to not just voice my opinion, but also to learn from other people in other industries and so forth. So thank you very much.
You're most welcome. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that considering your profile, which is a bit diverse from other panelists, we will get a different view on the same topic. And that is the very idea of having such panel discussions.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So for our audience, if you are following our session, you all know Ram. He's the organizer of GDG Cloud Toronto, and he has been the one who is one of the reason why we are talking right now. So thank you, Ram, for making these kind of events happen. And while we all know from the GDG Cloud Toronto perspective, I believe our audience will also like to know your wider profile, like what else you do, your professional career, so that they are more familiar. I know many folks know you, but we want them to know more about you.
Uh, hey guys, hello to everybody. So my career started as a programmer on mainframe platform back in India, and recently I work with Thomson Reuters. I happen to work formerly with Ontario Foundation as a senior manager of IT. So today I manage site reliability engineering team and application support team with Thomson Reuters. So that's my professional aspect of it, and other aspect of me is focusing more towards working closely with community people and sharing my learning and sharing the technology space in any capacity by going above and beyond with people like you who are passionate to contribute back to the community. So in a nutshell, that's where my profile comes from. And I'm also enthusiastic of all different types of technology, including artificial intelligence, IoT, machine learning, and a lot more. So I keep exploring myself. I keep learning, and people like Vimal and the organizing team as a whole, when we come together, that there's a synergy happening. So thank you to you, Vimal, for being the backbone and making us all share the space today. Thank you.
Thanks, Ram, for the introduction and your kind words. Yeah, so as we get along, as we know each other better, um, let's now further try to deep dive into the agenda of the day: artificial intelligence, social welfare, emerging economics. So when we are talking about agenda, which has these three key subjects, I'm calling these words as subjects. I guess the discussion could be very wider and elaborate, and for that purpose we have made this session a little bit longer, and we will talk in depth about it. I don't think we will have constraint of time, so let me begin with few basic things. uh, we all are hearing from tech perspective what artificial intelligence. We are hearing the pros and cons. We are hearing about the fear inherited around this. We are also worried about the social welfare. Will artificial intelligence add to the social welfare, or will impact in a negative way? And particularly when it comes to emerging economics. So let me start from the reverse order. How do we define the emerging economics? 20 years down the line, we had a certain definition of emerging economics. Are we having the same definition, or has it changed? So when our audience hear the word emerging economics, what should come to their mind? Sitesh, I would like to know from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vimal and Ram. And this is a very interesting question when we say emerging economies. And of course, the definitions have changed because wealth has arrived. As we see, we have, even in emerging economies, we see everybody carrying a mobile phone. Having a mobile phone, can we call it as an emerging economy? Yes, we can. But is it at par with the real economies? No, it is not. And therefore, the definitions has to change about the emerging economies. What I would say is that emerging economy, especially related to the technology perspective, that is our focus, is about having the incremental applications on the technology rather than having a big bang approach to the overall technology capability that is available today. So when I say that, I mean that there are some advanced research labs, advanced countries, advanced communities, though we live on one bandwidth, that is internet. But yes, there are resources that needs to have that kind of experience, and therefore emerging economies are someone who would like to have all the flavors of the modern technology, but in flavors which are incremental. That is the as simple as I can put it, rather than putting in much of the jargon around. What do you think?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Siddesh. Yeah, that's certainly a way of thinking, because defining, that's why I thought of defining this term. So, because we may all have a different perception of these terms. So, when we talk about it, it may give a different meaning to different people. So, while we agree to the definitions, probably we can have a common opinion about that. And for our audience, it will be easier to understand, like what our actual thoughts are. So the same question, it goes to you, Rick. So what do you think about emerging economics? Do you see it is same or it has changed?
Just to add on what Satish was saying, and I'm going to be brief in my answer, is just to, in terms of the technology and artificial intelligence and so forth, and the topic of discussion today, I think basic from me is in terms of if a country or so, are they adding and contributing to the development of the technology, or are they simple just a user? And I think on that basis, for me, I would then determine whether you're emerging or whether you're leading the industry and such, or the economy.
Great. So, Ram, having your career built up with the tech base and now getting into the managerial aspect of it, where you do see the perspective of economics impacting the work, both from social, because you have to look from that perspective when you are interacting with your resources. You are no more just a tech guy, rather you are somebody who see the impact on your team, your company, your revenue from all perspective. How do you see emerging economics?
Uh, since we're talking about emerging economies, I'm going to be economical with my answer as well, with the given time. So, to me, the way I look at it is more of inward investment going back into the nation. And as Satish was mentioning about being incremental, it's also being sustainable, looking at a sustainable growth. And it's going to be rapid for sure with the technology coming in. It's going to amplify the speed at which the emerging process was happening. So it's very important for any economy to pay more attention towards the process through which they are going to emerge, and contributing the investments backward into their own nations. So, and while adapting and still being kind of reachable to the global audience as well. So that's the way I look at it from my perspective on emerging economies.
Absolutely, I will definitely have this takeaway of bring back the resources into the nation. It's the inward flow. As long as that is happening, you are making it sustainable and more growing. So thank you, Ram, for sharing that thought. Um, One of my personal thought I had in this area was while having a discussion with few elites some time back, is probably every nation has an emerging economy within themselves, and every nation has some developed economies within themselves in certain pockets. Broadly, we see and divide this structure from the nation's perspective. This nation fall under category of this, but even those nation internally, if you see, we have different variant of economy. So I guess what applies for a certain set of nation will also apply for the certain pocket of a different nation, from that sense. Like many countries have their certain way of dealing with their problems and social welfare challenges, which outright certain nation may neglect, thinking that their economic structure is different, but they may have certain pocket within their countries where they can learn from those developing nations, emerging economics, and then economies, and then they can apply on their side. So having said that, let me come back to, because that was context setting around around our political and economic aspect of this topic. um, Coming to the social welfare, how do we define social welfare? And again, the same question goes back, like, is the definition of social welfare changing? What we used to call as the criteria for a social welfare, do we see that has changed in last 1 or 2 decades, or do we see that changing in the next 1 or 2 decades? Sitesh, I will again start with you.
So let me take this question from you, Vimal. When I think of social welfare, I think that a growth of a country or a nation and its people has to go hand in hand while maintaining the basic and the essential services and the essential growth, and one that is desirable growth, and one that is we can afford to live with the current growth strategy. And therefore, when I talk about the social welfare, it all depends on the journey on the growth path. When I say growth path, it is GDP. I talk about the industrialization. I talk about employment. I talk about basic housing and education scenario, the youth, the political stability of a system. This all is defined in parts for every country. And though it is very easy to say it is all about every country specific, but it gets also defined by the global dynamics. And then we have something called technology, and that we have seen in last 15, 20 years. And we resist the change, but we inadvertently we accept it because there's no other way. Or probably we find the space is really exciting and we didn't know about it. But then the what happens, what I have seen in emerging economies, as I said earlier, having a mobile phone in every hand does not ensure that a technology wave has come in. So the real use of it into social welfare has to go hand in hand. A balance and checks has to be in place. Some kind of a governmental policy should be in place by each of those governments. And therefore, it has to be put through some kind of a watchdog, something that we will discuss further, like United Nations or something like that, watchdogs. And therefore, we can actually say that the doses of technology, like the doses of a medicine, is given at the right point in the right time for the social welfare growth of a country, and then only it will be inclusive. That's my viewpoint.
Absolutely, Shitesh. And yeah, and I guess we cannot agree more than that, what you said. So, Eric, from your point of view, how do you see social welfare, the way it is in general defined? Do you think we are on right track in terms of defining it, or do you have a different view around this?
I suppose in a way we're on the right track on defining it, and each and every country will have its own way in defining social welfare. If I speak in terms of South Africa on its own, say for instance, social welfare, I think there's a lot of development and improvement needed in our country per se. For us, I would say is in terms of equality, in terms of the basic needs and privileges, if I can put it that way, that needs to go to the last person in the furthest rural part of the country. And I think that's key for us as a country and where our government is failing, if I can put it that way, personal opinion. So I think we need to obviously put plans in place to streamline, to do it as quick as possible. It's been dragging out for way too long, and we need to improve on those points. So we get that right, then the social welfare obviously will just increase in the country and for the betterment for the people.
Absolutely. The last person should get the welfare benefits, and then we can call that this is actually relevant. Ram, go ahead.
So I think it's the right way it's being defined all along, right? From Satish and Eric, it's reaching and making sure that the term welfare really gets its meaning when it's reaching the individuals, the families, right? Like you make sure that an individual of a nation has got the welfare in different aspects. It could be an employment specific welfare. It could be a welfare based on the ethnicity, or based on the gender welfare, or based on financial. It could be health specific welfare. So it's a broader term, right? It's like an umbrella. Like, and if every individual is looking forward to his own need for a specific welfare, or more than one, when he gets that, I think the nation is in the right path. Just like how in Canada right now, I think they are going above and beyond to help their citizens and residents of the nation by providing compensation for employment loss, job protection. A lot of communities are being funded. Not-for-profit organizations are empowered through government funds. So I see those as good signs. The other countries might have their own welfare plans and schemes and process in place. There might be, again, challenges in getting those welfare to that common man who is looking forward to. There might be roadblocks all along the way. Each country has their own kind of battles to ensure that the welfare reaches the right person. So that's just my take on what the social welfare.
Absolutely. You also spoke about the gender welfare. That also implies probably in the same family, few of family member will feel social welfare is good, while in many countries, for social region, they may feel the social welfare is compromised in many sense. Particularly when it comes to our different viewpoint, we treat different genders or different segment of the society. I guess the inclusion and equality has to be given a space. When we are talking about a broadness of the social welfare, the last person outreach, however, it's a very very burning topic all the time when people say, how do we define a nation welfare of a nation? Like, shall everybody have shall we wait for everybody to reach to a certain point before you start developing and taking the next step? Like, even for that example, countries like India, we are doing a very good things in the space program. That is probably one of the most technological advanced program. At the same time, we are dealing with some of the basic problem as well. So these are two thought process, two a school of thoughts here. One, shall we have everybody onboarded on the basic life standard and then we go for those programs, or let things happen in parallel and wait for should not wait for things to come across together. This discussion will keep on going. Yeah, I guess Hitesh, you want to add something?
Yeah, very nicely put, Vimal and Ram. My real concern is about, we are talking in terms of all the big five tech companies, big five, big six tech companies. They're talking in terms of artificial intelligence and social welfare, applications, government applications, robotics, banking, technology, algorithms, artificial intelligence and science, artificial intelligence and development, artificial intelligence and finance. But are governments watching it enough? Are watchdogs watching it enough? Are social welfare gurus watching it enough? And all these technologies
Okay, looks like we had a little glitch on the network from Sidesh's side. While Sidesh will get back with his right network, let me again come back to the original agenda. We have spent last 30 minutes discussing the context around what we would be talking. So artificial intelligence, right? So how do you see artificial intelligence? What are the fears which still exist? When it started, when the very dialogue around artificial intelligence started, it was fascinating. And more than that fascination that comes from all those Hollywood movies, we also had a certain fear that was injected into the in general society. Now my question would be, the fear that we have seen widely around artificial intelligence, do you see it is true, or it is an uh, exaggeration of something which exists in a small amount? How do you see it, Eric?
I think there's still a lot of fear in terms of artificial intelligence, the fear of the unknown, and possibly even the fear of not understanding it clearly enough. If I talk in terms of South Africa, say for instance, with the coronavirus, hypothetically speaking, there was obviously the opportunity where apps had to be designed or developed in terms of to manage the whole crisis. Say, for instance, South Africa. So our government launched an app, and the first fear that came into place is if you look at how the scripting and everything was done, first fear was this is a tracking device
Yeah,
in a sense. So a lot of people didn't deploy out to or start to use the whole app and everything. So I think there's
I think
the
there was
key is in terms of the
some
transparency.
disruption, Vimal Ram.
yes, Hitesh, there was interruption, so yeah, that's why I brought the question to
There
Eric.
was some
So
disruption.
yeah, we saw the disruption, and now I guess it should be fine from your side. So Eric, go ahead, you can continue.
Yes. So I think it's very key, obviously, is in terms of the transparency and what the data and everything is used for. And once you take the fear out and replace it with understanding and the way forward, and so I think it will be a lot better. In terms of, I think it's also age driven, not to put a label on it, but I think the youth and not so older generation understand, especially if you're not in the IT industry, understand the reasoning forward. So I think, yeah, once you take that fear out of the whole equation, then it will be a lot better.
Absolutely. Ram, do you really see the fear as Eric sees, or do you have a different view on this?
Um, so I'm no expert of an artificial intelligence. Let me say that first. Let me start with that, right? But yes, the way the word has been coined and the use cases, the application of an artificial intelligence is it's so broad that we cannot stand on one extreme and say this is going to be a good one, or stand on the other extreme and say it's going to be bad. Just like how Stephen Hawking was saying that it could be either good or the worst thing that could best thing or the worst thing that could happen to humanity through artificial intelligence. I also want to understand when somebody like Elon Musk says that we are summoning a demon by uh, trying to put artificial intelligence, and his quote on that we have to be very careful than nukes with artificial intelligence, because you are going to look at decision making based on our data that's going to be fed from the pattern that we have received in the past. There's going to be a lot of processing in it, so the quality of data would determine the decision that the artificial intelligence system would make. So my foremost concern is I feel like it's kind of like a baby, right? Like you have a baby, you feed the baby with the right information, the right ability to make a decision using. I'm just comparing that with an artificial system where you feed the right data and you feed a right algorithm to make the right decision, and have its own limitation being taught as well. So today, as humans, we have been set certain regulations and rules by the government. There is a law that governs us, which kind of ensures that the society is in a harmony. So with artificial intelligence coming in, I think we need to pay attention and not to shy away from a technology, because I see the benefits that a system like an artificial intelligence can bring in. Like somebody, we could predict a simple use case, like we could predict somebody who potentially might have a cancer or a treatment, God forbid, but something so early, with using systems like artificial intelligence, by understanding the patterns of the patients who have been diagnosed in the past. So the benefits are humongous, but I think we should also be parallelly working around the law and the limitation to keep it in control, and be consistent with the decision that it makes. So when I say consistent, you cannot have a particular artificial intelligence giving you a decision to say go right, while the other artificial intelligence system with its own set of data is telling you to go in a different direction. So there has to be some convergence with the data that would be owned by different organizations. There has to be a consortium that has to look up and have some governance in place. I think if we have that governing body, we might have some hiccups, just like in any technology, but I think it's going to definitely take us to the next level. And there is another fear factor about job loss, but but to me, there has always been a resistance when a new technology has emerged. I still recall those days when people were kind of avoiding mobile phones. There was a lot of skepticism. There was a fear factor about how the mobile phone would kind of invade the privacy and safety concerns. But look at where we are today. Everybody has embraced it. We have seen the benefit a mobile phone could bring. It has made the technology come into our hands. So I'm looking forward to how things are going to be coming together around artificial intelligence. It's again, it's an ocean, but I think it's going to bring us some good goldfishes as well. So we have to carefully choose what we are going to use it for.
Okay, thank you, Ram. Caution is the takeaway. Whatever we do, we must be vigilant how we take a certain technology rather than being biased about it. So, Sitesh, we had lost you for a while, but I hope your connectivity is good. What we were talking is pretty much, is AI, artificial intelligence, good, bad? Do we need to fear it, or do we not need to fear it? Sitesh, you will need to unmute yourself.
Yeah. So, Vimal, I understand the technology from perspective AI and related stuff, the machine learning, data science, and all the neural networks. They have been in place for some time. But what I see, the ushering of it in the big tech companies, and then being pushed as a national agendas, continental agendas, that is something which is a matter of little concern. That are we all ushering into the technology because it is available at the fingertips, or we are looking at it from a community's perspective? And that's where I'm interested to know whether we have something like a United Nations for Technology Adoption. Like in India, we have NASSCOM. I'm not sure whether in South Africa we have any such body, probably IITPSA. But what about in Canada? There are certainly some bodies in Germany, in United States. But is there a coordinated body that is basically monitoring, observing, like we have? Ram, you would certainly know about IEEE, where they do a lot of research. They publish it as a journal, and then it is discussed at industry events. It is being discussed, and there are think tanks which are trying to argue and convince the governments for the national budgets to do implementation. I want to understand, and I want to emphasize on artificial intelligence, because the nature of it is not just technology. It encompasses many things together. It is a live science. It is a live science. It has been seen in Hollywood movies in a very different way, versus what we talk of in the tech fests or technology events are all about the applications, how they are going to benefit the revenues streams and the industry as such. But on the movie side, we see a very dark pictures, different kind of scenarios. So there has to be something in between, and we need to understand whether it is needed by all at the same time, the same features, same functionalities, and who controls it, where does it get controlled. And that is a big challenge when we talk about technologies like artificial intelligence. And then let us not forget, we live in a lot of social media manipulations, where a lot of things can be manipulated. Who controls it is my agenda. So
Absolutely. Thanks, Hitesh. It was really thought-provoking what you said here, and the perspective with which we have to start thinking. For me, what I see it as more like we have good fishes, bad fishes in the tank. Now, we may have good AI and bad AI structure. I guess what we fear the most is about not just the bad AI, rather the powerful and the bad AI. If we make something which gets powerful and is not good, then we need to fear. And same applies. Like when I was having the session today around machine learning, I did speak about even before we start talking about machine learning, are we thinking about the human learning? How is it happening? What good or bad it is causing to the society? If we can't have that real control on human learning, why are we expecting it on the machine learning? It has to go hand in hand. So when it comes to AI again, more than what it will become, it's more than important is who is making it and what's the objective here. At different stages of evolution, I guess certain concerns had been raised when nuke was developed, when when probably the first knife was developed. We did not have communication to talk. Probably that would have a discussion whether it's good or bad, whether you will cut vegetables or whether you will cut a person. So that discussion is obvious, should be there. That is perfectly all right. But because this discussion gives an opportunity, okay, fine. If it can get bad and if it can get powerful, what should we do about it? So the fight between good and bad will always stay. It's the evolving process. That is how I will say it. But what
yeah.
brings yeah, yes, Desh, you want to say something?
Yeah, Vimal, yeah, I understand the good and bad perspective. My concern and my small piece of advice to all the big tech companies is that a technology has to reach the end user, as you said, in the beginning. And that's where the whole challenge with the technology is that many of us are just consumers of the technology, not the creators. And the people who are consumers of the technology, they consume it. Probably they don't. How many of us have even read one disclaimer before we install a software? We just download,
Absolutely.
just install. We just upgrade if it is available. In the PC era, we had something like it used to come on a given date, given time, many years back. Now on mobile phones, we don't even know. The update is available. We just time an update and we just update it. We don't
Yeah.
know. We probably don't want to know. That is also a possibility. But
Yeah.
then when something goes wrong and something becomes, we have seen, many things can be manipulated. So I hear, like in India, I am hearing that there is a rollout of artificial intelligence-led technologies by Niti Aayog, which is a planning commission for income tax purposes. Now, with a population of 1.25 billion people, it sounds like a great case, but it is important to know who controls the data and how will it be used. That is more important to understand. How will it be used? Because we are trying to reach to a level of what United States has as one social security number connected to everything else. But then the usage of technology also brings its perils. And all I'm saying is that we need to watch closely and we need to get the report, because it is mostly funded by the governments on the taxpayers' money. And therefore, the people need to know what is happening from good, bad, ugly, average perspective, everything. Isn't that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And while we are talking about that, it is evident that we will always have this good, bad, ugly perspective. So, what generally saves us from those situations is the regulation. That is where regulation comes into picture. So, we don't stop things, we regulate it. Same applies to the liquor selling, the tobacco selling, probably the weed selling throughout nations. There are always, we have seen good and bad aspect, but we have brought in a regulation to make sure things are right. Now, what regulations are right now? Do you see we have regulation? Is there any presence of real regulation globally? If yes, is it effective? If no, when do you think we can start adopting some regulation around AI?
So something really great, Vimal, has happened that I have seen in United States. The White House has got some policy documents related to the United Nations and artificial intelligence implementation, and that is signed by the President of America. And this is a document which is not a new document. It has been there more, it highlighted from Barack Obama's time. And as latest, it is also signed in this year by the current President Donald Trump. And when I say that, it is very important to see that the American government is trying to see that unleash all the AI resources, remove the barriers in AI innovation, train AI workforce, and then promote an international environment supportive of American AI innovation. So coming it from the American government, and then there is Japan, which has a national policy on it. Singapore is trying to do a lot of social study around the artificial intelligence. In Africa, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, they have SADC. Eric would tell us they are trying to do all these stuff where more and more regulation is tried. But idea is not to regulate it from a controlling perspective. The idea is to keep a watch so that it doesn't spiral out of the current control. It doesn't destabilize the current setup. It brings the changes in a small way, and that is what my point is. And there are regulations there, but how effective they are, we cannot wait for some a great technology antitrust kind of a stuff to happen to know that. But I'm sure in European Union it is very strict, and in some of the economies they are just still grappling with what to do, how much can be done. I mean, the regulation that is being practiced in America cannot be practiced in probably in Liberia, for that matter.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, Sitesh. It has to be taken from case to case basis. While we will also talk about who will be the early adopter of these technologies, let us get some view from Eric regarding uh, um, uh, um, uh, this regulations. Do you see it is in place? If yes, is it effective? If no, do you think when it will come across?
I think in the bigger countries like China, US, and so forth, it's probably in place, and there's good regulation. There's always development and room for improvement. I think in developing countries like us, say for instance in Africa, I think the key is in terms of transparency, and then also to create that trust. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for us as a country to adopt AI, is in terms of trust, like the transparency. And earlier said from Raman, so it's the quality of the data. What are you using in terms of to put into place to manage all of this? So I think all of those goes hand in hand. So I think coming from South Africa's point of view, there's a lot that still needs to be done. we generally followers in terms of the rest of the world. And so, even though I think there's some brilliant minds in South Africa, and it came from South Africa, that's shaped the world, and it's made some big changes. And I think for us as a country, it would be good to see those engineers and those guys that's leading the whole industry to come back to South Africa and to come and adopt here and develop locally, and yeah, just to help us as a country.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, and that is definitely a good perspective from the geographical area you come from. Uh, Ram, your 2 cents on this. What do you think?
I'll keep it short. I know the government of Canada has been exploring the responsible use of artificial intelligence. Let me quote the term clearly. They call it as responsible use of artificial intelligence, right? So as long as we have and they have been very clear about how they would like to use it, as the system should still be adhering to the values, the ethics, and the law, whatever the application that comes. So by ethics, I also include the privacy aspect of it, right? I'm really hoping that all nations has to come together, form a consortium in terms of having an artificial system put in place for public use, because decisions are going to be made. And again, as I said before, it's going to be based on which artificial intelligence system, what is the use case where it's going to be deployed, is what is going to be very crucial. If you are going to deploy it on a healthcare system, it's pretty much going to be highly critical. Like, it has to make uh, close to 99.99% right decisions. You cannot afford to let it make a wrong decision, because that decision would destroy someone's life. So I think we may be very close to artificial system, but I think we may not, or maybe there is a great work, or the governments are already doing uh, kind of laws and principles to govern artificial intelligence. I'm pretty sure that every nation is definitely having their own uh, association. In Canada, I know the Information Technology of Association of Canada, ITAC, is some thing that actually does some work around those areas as well. So as long as anything that comes with moral uh, responsibility, and people should also understand that when you have anything in the social media today, you have to have two things. One, be socially responsible, be personally responsible as well. So whatever you throw in there, it's not going to be, it's like a genie. Once you open the bottle, it's already there. May it be your personal videos or any message that you put out there, it's already out there. It has gone to millions and millions of people already. So be socially responsible before you say or criticize or say something about anything. Just be responsible. I just want to take this stage as a opportunity to say that, because today it has gone where people, when you meet somebody in person, I may not be really as bad as I would be on a social media giving you such a criticism, right? And it's happening. So when the same two people who are fighting on the social media, when they meet, I don't see them really like fighting as bad as they do on social media, just because there's no personal connect. They don't see the face. So I think there is still the human connection that does make a change. So all along, AI might change the way we work. It might take us to the next level, as long as it's responsibly used and put in the right use case.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, thank you, Ram. I mean, from Canadian perspective, like what regulations are there, and I guess when we talk about Canada, we are pretty much talking about North America thought process in this regard. And again, between Europe or North America, then we have South Africa, we have Asian region, China, of course, is doing a lot of things around artificial intelligence, and we have to keep ourselves updated around the regulation that is in place, because again, considering the global village, irrespective of whether any innovation product or service is developed in any part of the world, we all are going to use it one or other way. So it's not necessary we have to wait for a time when it actually comes to us. Being aware could be a key in order to solution building. On that note, like I have quite a list of questions. You can get non-stop like for a while, but I'd love to take question from our audience as well. One question is from Delio, and he's asking, "What are your thoughts about ethical design?" So what I will say is, while we are building either product or a solution or a service, whatever we are doing in our respective areas, because we all come from our tech background, we are involved in those kind of developments. If it is not a product, we are involved in a solution or even the process building. Are we taking care of ethical design? Are we taking care of ethical attributes in that? Like, do we have a scope for that? Is it an adopted format? What do you think, Eric? Let me start other way around this time.
Sorry, yep, you caught me off guard there. So on the ethical design, I think it's very important in terms of the end result of what do you want to achieve by implementing the AI. If you want to better the welfare of the country and the implementation of technology and speed up the service or the service delivery to your people of the nation, all of those are key points in terms of the ethical design. So I think it's very key in terms of end results and the governing and then also the data that goes into it.
Absolutely. All right, Sitesh, how do you see? Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, Eric has put it very, very succinctly. Ethical design is something which not only takes care of the regulations and the compliance of each country or the locality, but it is also about the usability part of it, how it will get used, who will be using it, how will they be using it, how will the controlling authorities use it, and definitely how consumer friendly that particular design is. At the same time, many times we are nowadays seeing with consumer electronics, well, like a smart TVs and our smartphones, we don't even know that sometimes our things are getting recorded. We keep things on, and more in this pandemic times, we are seeing the glitches in our online presence. And then the ethical design makes a real case here. And I think it should not be just left to the product designers.
Absolutely. I guess the onus is on all of us. Before I tell my thoughts on this, Ram, like you are involved in solution building and process building, at times, even the product building for that matter, if not building, enhancing it. Do you think, again, it's not like I want to put you on the spot, like, do you think we apply ethical design by choice, or we just do it because we want to comply with the existing regulation, whatever minimum is needed? Or is there any common understanding among team that, okay, we need to make sure that ethically the product, the service, the process will not be misused, will not get distracted from what it is intended for?
The way I look at ethical design is a daily thing, right? Like every day, you look at the process from an organization perspective. It's about how do you connect with your clients, how do your users uh,
Looks like there was some disturbance from Ram's side. Maybe I will be getting back in few seconds. But maybe I will take this opportunity to talk about my views. Is I guess broadly, when it comes to industries, the minimum that they are able to do, because it's a highly competitive environment and industries are competing with each other, the scope of having a suo moto approach for ethical design is still limited. If as a developer, as somebody who is a solution building, it is asked to uh, keep certain things in mind in terms of ethical design, probably it is being done. I will really love to see if broadly from the conscience, right from the developer to a tester to somebody who is in the product design or somebody who is managing these products, somebody who is account manager and is handling it, have a view around this. I believe once we reach that stage, this discussion and the concerns around this ethical misdesign or something like that will get absolute. The current fear possibly is because it's not coming from within us, rather we are waiting for something to get imposed, the regulation to come, and that is anyway inevitable. I guess that applies to almost any other thing. But a general consensus, general thought process among every individual, whatsoever it takes, it's same like waste management, or disposing of our electronic wastes, like how much we are aware about it. Same way, how much we are aware that what is happening to our data, how it can be misused. Is our data only our data, or it also includes some data which we don't own, it just exists with us? So I see it that way. I may not necessarily own all the data that is in my device. If I don't care of my data, probably if it has contacts of Sitesh, it has contacts of Virik, it has many other information. So if I'm getting compromised, I'm actually compromising many people who are related to me. So the onus is bigger than it may sound. The onus is probably bigger than an individual in itself. Ram, you
Well,
had a suggestion. Yeah, go ahead, Sitesh, if you have to add something.
yeah, I'm saying that in Europe's case, Vimal, there is something called they are building something called human-centric artificial intelligence, and they have a set of guidelines. There is a European Artificial Intelligence Alliance where they publish these draft guidelines and then they discuss on it. There is a communication on building trust in human-centric artificial intelligence, and this has an approval of all the European Union nations about this kind. So the way you know what, why this is happening, human-centric artificial intelligence, why do we need to build trust in this? Because it is a disruptive technology, because it can be mishandled, because it can go wrong, because we can see a situation where the machines are almost working or mimicking the humans, and that we have seen. But at the same time, let us remember, Stephen Hawking did not make some great predictions about artificial intelligence. Another South African entrepreneur, the great name called Elon Musk, he has said that artificial intelligence is just like summoning a demon upon us. Stephen Hawking said we are probably not knowing the artificial intelligence implications. It is bigger than a climate change fear. So I'm saying that we need to build this trust as part of a human-centric artificial intelligence. I would not have said this about any other thing for as of matter, but I chose to talk on this because probably we really don't know, or probably we know and we are not able to comprehend the capabilities. A rather rude word is to say power.
Absolutely, Sitesh. Yeah. So on that note, I mean, I guess there was one more question which I would like to take, and when I have another segment of interacting with you all. So, uh, Tushar is saying that it is a great technology, no doubt, but my question is to differentiate between AI hype and the actual need of AI. I believe there is a big difference in between. I guess this question was pretty much covered in our discussion, but still, probably we can quickly our put like 30 seconds of note. So basically, he is saying that is it a hype or is it for real? Uh, I mean, yeah. Let's just put our thoughts together.
Well, Tushar, uh, Tushar has put up actually a very interesting question, and I would say that to advance the industry, we need little bit of hype. But what has happened is that we have glamorized the technology to a point where we only are seeing the better parts, adoption parts, so that we can get national budgets to implement it. But the reality part, the usage part, the daily usage part, who will decide on the use cases, especially from emerging economies? What do you say, Eric?
No, I agree with you completely. Look, there's the hype of the AI, and as a developing country, I would say look at the hype, what's out there in the world, and take what's needed and implement what's going to best suit you as a country, and it's going to assist your the people in the country, and not just follow the hype, but take the good from
Yeah.
it, leave the rest for the rest of the world to implement, and as slowly as you grow and develop, then again just take then the best and leave the rest. That's my take on it.
Absolutely. Do what is needed. Understand what is needed for you. So otherwise, we can enjoy that hype as a movie theme, which is anyway will get translated into. So it's pretty nice to understand from different perspective for something which is actually in real at the same time is part of the hype as well. So my take, what I understand from the panel here is uh, observe, take a take the real part and leave the hype part for the movies wherever it is being made. So that would be my personal take on that. uh, Having said that, now while we are taking up questions from our audience, while I have a list of things to ask, I believe we all may have certain questions ourselves as well, right? So we will also like to ask, like, Eric, do you have any question in your mind for yourself that you would like Sitesh to talk about it, or maybe even from our audience, somebody has a view, they can post it on YouTube who are watching it. Let's also open up for our own concerns and questions. It's a
Uh,
bi-directional channel, you know. Yeah.
Nothing from me right now. Give me a moment to think about that. Maybe Satish or Rama's got something to ask.
Absolutely.
Well, Ram,
Sure. Do you want me to ask a question, Stage, or do you
yeah,
want to ask me?
yeah. I think it's a freewheeling discussion, and I'm not about control. I am about the balanced usage. So let's try to play a devil's advocate here, and let's try to differentiate between the hype versus the technology that is being generated. It is like being said that the technology nowadays in today's DevOps, that yesterday Vimal was talking, and there were a couple of other speakers talking. In the world of DevOps, I have heard in South Africa, in my journeys of South Africa, CIOs start, in banking sector, in financials, they keep talking about they want to have the DevOps kind of a feature like they have seen in Silicon Valley. Now, in Silicon Valley, a technology gets developed, and they just push it for testing, and there is a huge testing community which automatically gets tested. You cannot push those kind of artificial intelligence kind of disruptive technologies for a human testing. In retail, in food industry, we call it retail consumption. It has to go through certain industry grade testing, where we not only bring in the best engineering minds, best design minds, we also need to bring the people who understand the human computer interface. We need to bring in the people who understand the psychological behavior of consumers, and that has been a challenge, more rather than more of a welcoming time. We suddenly, when mobile phone came 20 years back in our hands, it took time for us to adopt. But today, through an app, everything gets pushed, and before we know it, our friends, our families, our children start using it, and suddenly we come to know, oh really, that is what is happening. Like in
Yeah.
case of Eric, again pointing out to you, I heard some of those consumer electronic devices, suddenly the recorder gets on, and it is not good to keep a smart TV in the bedroom.
Well, that's definitely the rumors, and I think it's probably based on fear. But it is also I think some sort of command word or so that's probably programmed in the TVs, if I can put it that way. Touching on that base, I think from a consumer electronics point of view, especially with the TVs, if you see the technology and everything has gone into it, the AI infrastructure is being built in it, especially if I look at now the new generation of TVs coming out. I think that's a good use case in terms of getting people aware, making them aware in terms of how AI can be implemented in embedment of their life. It's a subtle way of putting it out there, and it's from an education platform. So yeah, it's not there to spy or so, but it's there to enhance your lifestyle. It learns from you, adapts from you. It learns from your environment, from acoustics to your visual, and so it's good to implement those sort of platforms just to educate people.
So
Exactly.
yeah, sorry. So yeah, I was thinking about this, right? Like I think human tendency is to always be. I think it's just like how humans react to looking at fire at the first time, probably, right? First we fear at it, and then we understand it, and then we put it to the right use case.
Correct.
So I think that's the way humans have evolved and embraced everything throughout life. Uh, Technology is no exception to that. So I think with artificial intelligence, few things to keep in mind is the quality of data that we are going to use and train the algorithm and the decision making capability. Uh, the consciousness, there has to be some consciousness about on how human would add not just the technical parameters but also the situational parameters around a particular decision making that humans would add to it. uh, so things like that in terms of ethical design, I think it's going to be very important. I see uh, some big organizations like Netflix, they do have different profiles. It's just a simple use case of ethical design, right? They don't have one profile giving you one account, just log in and then you can just use it. You can they do infuse the parental control. You can create a separate profile for your kid. So there are controls, checks and balance that you can put in your design, thinking from your end user perspective. Parental control that has been added by all of the mobile technology companies today on mobile phones. I think that's a responsible choice that the companies have made. Nobody directed them that it should be done, but I think the companies stepped forward. They added measures to ensure that their users are understanding their user base and the risks that would be involved if it goes in the wrong hands, like kids. So I think it's all about responsible choices, end of the day, that we make. As long as we keep that in mind, I think society would benefit, technology would flourish. I think we can all reap the benefit of any technology, as a matter of fact. Quoting Elon Musk, who said, summoning, it's like summoning the demon. On the flip side, I think he's also adapting autopilot cars that are going to use artificial intelligence systems. So I think he's also saying that let's be careful about it, right? And that's a message that he's trying to pass. He's not against artificial intelligence, rather he's cautioning us to be responsible and be careful about what we are going to go forward with. And he's somebody who always thinks of 100 yards forward from anybody. So that's a message that I see from that.
Correct, and I think I appreciate that you mentioned Elon Musk. At one side, he said something, and then his products are trying to imbibe and bring the same thing in a different way. The challenge with artificial intelligence, as I see, is that it breeds with other subjects. It crossbreeds, not only breeds, it breeds with other subjects. Artificial intelligence breeds with psychology, how people perceive information, process it, and build knowledge, how they behave. Artificial intelligence crossbreeds with philosophy, mind as a physical entity, methods of reasoning, basis of learning, foundations of language. It breeds with neuroscience, how the basic information processing units, neurons process information. AI breeds with mathematics, algorithms, computationality, proof of methods of representation, tractability, decidability. AI breeds with statistics, learning from data. As we all know, we are all looking for data sets, the great clean data sets, uncertainty and certainty of modeling. AI breeds with economics, rational economic agents, usefulness of data, models, decision theory. AI breeds with linguistics, grammar, syntax, knowledge representations. It breeds with computer science. It breeds with cognitive sciences, how things are in nature, interpretation of different phenomena and their impact. And since artificial intelligence breeds with these many subjects, it is important for any product, any solution. Do not just bring product designers and developers. Please bring in people who understand these subjects, who are experts in these subjects, and who can have the overarching view of these subjects, something that in the near future, recent future, we can think of our Steve Jobs, who could say he understands his consumer better than the consumers themselves.
I think in saying that, sorry if I can just add, I think it might also create the opportunity for where you have your developer or your designer as such, the architecture of the technology, and then there's a middleman per se, where that's the bridge between the end consumer or the end person and the designer or developer, to just bridge that gap and put a human element to it, and guide the ethics, if you will. I think that might also be an opportunity in the near future, if not already an opportunity in the industry.
Correct. I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the thing is, like, while we are discussing it, it's very healthy to have this discussion, because we are able to think to different perspective. And when we go back to our work and the participants who are listening to it, we all contribute from our at least thoughts, if not, making a public opinion. A good public opinion, which is well thought, which is well read, is equally important in a welfare society. That's my thought. So one thing which I wanted to add in that context is, uh, few decades down the line, when we spoke about emergency services, probably fire, police, uh, and medical. These were the three emergency services. And when I say emergency services, something that is needed 24 into 7. But now we need our food 24 into 7. We need our groceries 24 into 7. So while we are increasing our expectation of the emergency services, something has to work through a night. I mean it has to work 24 into 7 into 365. And at the same time, we are trying to maintain this work life balance throughout globally for humans. So if humans will maintain work life balance, somebody has to work 24 into 7. Now, how many of us really think what is happening is in Amazon warehouses, how are you getting your product delivered from order within 12 hours or 16 hours? If we try to explore a little bit, we can see there are probably thousands or tenth of thousands or millions of bots working 24 into 7, just because you want your product, you have ordered it, you pay for that, you go for your prime subscription, right? So while we are doubting the abilities, and which is very good thing to do, because I feel it's a healthy habit to have something and then doubt it, so that we can talk about it, we can make it better. We have evolved a lot in every area, the safety of airlines, the safety of what not we are doing in that sense, and it all has happened from that very fear. I'm not a very big fan of having not a fear. It's good to have certain fear, because it allows you to think how you will overcome the problem that we are anticipating. And as to the hype, I guess that is fine. Over the time we will understand. We can always define it at this point of time, what is hype for me and what is a reality for me, and we can take it up. That will be an ongoing process. Yeah, Eric, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and you actually raised an interesting point. I think as humans, we're the demons of our own creations in terms of the increase of demand. We want things faster.
Yeah.
We want it, more availability and so forth. And you don't want to wait a week. You want it as soon as possible. So in a way, we are the creations of our own demons. We want all of this demand, but something or somebody needs to do that. And there's only so much that a human, or so fast that a human can operate. and process and just adapt. So I think in a way we as consumers are the demons of our creations.
Absolutely. So, other question that we have from our our participant is around Neuralink from Elon Musk. I guess for this question, I will start with Ram. Uh, the question is, Neuralink is also getting in hype. That's a thought from Pragati Upadhyay. So, do we really feel, Ram, you follow Elon Musk more than probably us? Us, I will start with you. What's your thought? Is it really a hype, or do you really see value in that man?
Sorry, was on mute. Honestly, like I'm not expert on AI, right? It's just my perceptions about the artificial intelligence overall, and the thoughts that just like any of us would uh, envision how and what it would look like. Um, the way I started getting more interest towards AI is looking at some movies, right? Like the cartoons, like Jarvis, Ultron. I think we take inspiration from movies, and movies take inspiration from the real life, right? And that's the hype that we are talking probably. So there is a hype about AI in movies, and we try to create that in a real life as a use case. May become possible. The hypes may get to reality. How close are we to it? When would it hit us? We don't know. Maybe we are leaps and bounds away from uh, seeing an artificial intelligence system that passes the conscious test, right? And but the rapid change of or the rapid development that these AI research companies and communities are doing today, I wouldn't be surprised somebody coming up with some working AI and surprise us a day saying that here is the first artificial intelligence system that passes the conscious test, and the hype may become the reality, and we have to just accept it. Nobody knew the benefits that a mobile phone would bring in. Nobody knew. We just thought mobile phones are going to be used for calling somebody. We never knew that you can see somebody. We can do banking. We don't have to go in person. So it just brought everything that probably we never even thought about it. So artificial intelligence, when people say hype, I just think it's how we imagine things, and somebody gives life to it. The imagination someday becomes alive, and we, I think we're smart enough to differentiate something impossible dream versus something that could possibly happen. People made fun of those inventors who said that there's going to be a light that will give you the brightness like sun. People did not believe that would happen. It did happen, and here we are using it. So we might all just become consumers of those hype someday. So I'm still being positive, and I take hype as somebody's dream about the technology or the feature that they're envisioning in the back of their mind. So that hype might give shape as a feature to a product or to a system.
All right. So, yeah, that's certainly there. Like, it will be an ongoing discussion, because at every phase, the hypes become reality, and the closer it reaches to the reality, we start accepting it, and it's no more a hype. So probably every such technology starts with that element of hype. That's the very nature of innovation. um, and when we were talking about this movies and inspiration, I feel like when inspiration is taken from real life, it becomes a documentary movie. And when inspiration is taken from this hype, then we have a movie like Gravity, and movie like whatnot, all these tech fancy movies. So it's the vice versa. What we give back is a mutual thing. Yes, Desh.
I, I have one thing to say here. Mobile, when we bring a mobile to a country, when we launch a mobile phone to a country, we have to do a lot of compliance tests from a technology perspective. And one of the technology tests is specific absorption rate or SAR rate of that mobile phone, which is different for different countries or different for different geographies. And it is just a measure of the electromagnetic radiation that the phone emits while downloading or uploading or being connected to the network. as I worked in a telecom company long time. I got to know. Now that is one, the hardware is specific. It can be measured, and therefore those measures are put in place. But when we talk about artificial intelligence and all the cross breeding that it has with the various sciences, psychology, mathematics, and whatnot, cognitive sciences, it will be very, very hard to develop a certification for an artificial intelligence based product to be launched in any country, or on even on a country basis. Who will certify that? When it comes to the hardware certification, we know the engineering, we know the design, we know the capabilities, we know the chips, we know the chipsets, motherboards, and all. But when it comes to technology which combines so many sciences together, I'm very much interested to know how will any government or any technology body come up with a certification and be able to grade it that this is red, amber, green, to simplify to that level. And this AI application into engineering, this AI application into transport is passed into this category. It is amber category. It is amber category for Asia, but it is green category for Australia. It is very, very hard to come by, and that is where I want to understand and maybe ask our Google, because it has got a see no evil, and Google is for the globalized world. It and to know about it.
Absolutely. Uh, yeah. So on that note, I believe while we have spoken about regulation, the approach from organizational perspective, the definitions, how do you define and whatnot, do you see? I mean, how do you see the government's role in this? I can recall Mark Zuckerberg, questioning in the Senate. Then we had Sundar Pichai being questioned on these aspects, and we have the questions, we have the answers. Do you see the element of that set of question and the set of answer? It's does it serve the purpose, or it has to go a long way before we come to some conclusive understanding around this? I'm pretty sure you all may have watched that question and answer session in that Senate, right? How do you perceive that?
So, as a technological company CEO, or the leaders of technology companies who create new technologies, they it is their job to push forward the technology. It is their job to showcase the benefits of the technology. It is also their job to make the life of the planet better in terms of the usage of technology. But at the same time, the government has to play a watchdog, because it is the government who basically makes and breaks the decisions in terms of legality that we see today. We still live we don't live in a utopian world. We have national borders. We have our resources being shared. Yes, internet, we can say internet is endless resource, but endless resource comes with its own ethical governances, and therefore it may be endless, but it may not be free. As we know in management jargon, there's no free lunch. And therefore, it is important for those Senate hearings that we have seen, or the European Union antitrust laws. It is equally important, but how we portray it, as we are technologists, how we portray it, have we heard the other side? Have we heard the sociologists? Have we heard the public administration people? Have we heard the anthropologists? What do they see? Probably they have a better nerve on the human's growth as a community and society, rather than the technology people who think that let us dump the technology and it will be adopted. So there has to be a balance. None of the scales are good. We can't live in 200 years old kind of a lifestyle. But the way the technological advances have taken place in last at least 25 years, let's not go up to Charles Babbage. In last 25 years, I think there is more and more need for technological leaders to bring in social scientists in their institutions, social designers, anthropologists, political analysts, psychologists, cognitive sciences people, and not just engineering and technology talent. When there will be a healthy balance of this, we will see happy products, not just products. And that is where I always feel when we go to sell a technology or a solution, the customer is looking for a wholesome approach, not just the objectives being met. What we call in common English obligations. So we sell something what is asked for, but what our product does, if it makes the customer happy, the customer comes back. And here, with AI, with AI and the social welfare, I think we should not think in terms of customer versus vendor or customer versus seller.
Absolutely.
Eric, from a perspective.
Look, Satish, I definitely agree with you. You've touched on a lot of points. I think it's not so much the technology or the developer or the company, so it's definitely more needs to be more governed by government and also the inclusiveness of the public in terms of various professions, and depends on where you develop the AI to be implemented in. And equally, like Satish says, you need to maintain that balance and good governance, and that's going to be key.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, at every point of time, we have to take a step back and keep realizing, like, how do we perceive all these understanding and information that we have. Now, technology like AI and machine learning and all these evolving technology as a commodity could be something concerning. Rather, we have to develop a mindset to call them as like technology as a service, technology as a tool for social welfare. I'm not sure when we will start bringing those thought process rather than pushing it to the consumer for. I mean, it's perfectly all right if certain work gets generated into money because it creates employment. That is perfectly all right. But we have to move our focus from commodity focus to welfare focused or service focused. Probably that will go a long way, a more sustainable approach. And
Correct.
I
Correct.
didn't
And I
realize that.
think,
Yeah, go ahead, Sitesh. Just a bit, like, I didn't realize we have talked 1.5 hours, and it was like so quick.
oh,
But I still will take a quick bit, a bit around this thought, and then we will see now for our probably last question if we have. I can see one question on the audience. Let's have a quick bit on this.
yeah, yeah. So are we taking the question?
Yes, yes. So you can quickly tell your thoughts around technology as a
Yeah.
commodity and versus technology as a welfare service. How we can shift that
So
mindset.
so what I'm seeing is when we started with mobile phones, or even Ram, you said you were into mainframe. I was also into mainframe development. Vimal, you were also. And from those days, in another 20 years down the line, the applications were still governed by developers, project managers, product designers. But now, with artificial intelligence, there is a potential chance of it going out of our hand. And why? Because it comes with something which you put into the code that you were not putting so far, and with and that is bias. And that is a big thing, BIAS, bias. And in artificial intelligence, we are trying to put the bias where a car has to decide whether the person sitting inside the car is more important rather than the person standing in front of the car on the road. And that is where is the somebody needs to certify it. If a national government says it is okay to save the driver rather than the person in front of the road as a bias that is built into the software, that's fine. But again, as the machines will learn, as per the machine learning or artificial intelligence, even if my door is closed, the bot will come and open the door because the bot feels my door should be open. So that is where I think bias is very important aspect that we need to be really careful before we put it into the systems.
Yeah, absolutely. So
if I can just quickly, sorry, Vimar,
yeah,
if I can just quickly ask a question to the gentleman. I'm just having a thought in terms of the naming of artificial intelligence. Do you think, in your opinion, if it was rebranded, a different name, a more subtle name, do you think it would have had a different impact on how people look at it?
Well, this question for Sitesh, I also have some thoughts around this, but if Sitesh has something, I will love to listen to him.
I probably lost you, Eric, for a minute. Can you just tell me? Repeat.
What I was asking is the wording or the naming artificial intelligence. If it was to be rebranded, given a different name, do you think the impact and the whole nervousness around the subject, do you think it would have been the same or would have been different?
I love it. I love it since you asked about it. And I think for a larger population who are just the consumers, it is important the words, the impact, the branding, the campaign that we do actually minimizes the impact that is there actually. It is like doctor administering a drug to a terminal patient till the last day saying that please have the medicine and you will be okay. And that's where probably artificial intelligence and the hype around it, the reality around it, both the way we talk about data sets, the clean data sets, creating of data sets. I asked somebody recently, how can you put an artificial intelligence into HR analytics tool? Every human, every employee is different. It is very, very subjective matter. Putting an artificial intelligence into HR analytics tool. So yes, artificial intelligence, for a quick thing, probably we can just say additional intelligence. If we put it as additional intelligence and we market it, campaign it well, as a human being, we would feel, oh, it is an additional. If I have it, I will have an additional brain next to my brain. But when I say artificial intelligence, first of all, the artificial word is very shallow. It has negative connotations and it is shallow, and therefore it may always say, oh, artificial intelligence for a scientist could differ for entertainment celebrity. So additional.
Thank you, Sitesh. I mean that is definitely one of the perspective where are we adding something to what we already have, or are we trying to replace something completely, which will be not me? The very fear of not me. It's more like a xenophobic approach that okay, it's something different and it's gonna impact me in a way, rather than thinking it's me with an additional ability, right? So I guess that mindset will definitely change. And I was about to say, and I can see we have Melka Pinto saying that there is also a movement to call it a synthetic intelligence. And I know in Toronto here, there are some tech groups who call it synthetic intelligence group. They avoid calling it artificial intelligence, probably for the same stigmatization of the word itself. Probably people can use more innovative words, which is more having a positive connotation. As you said, that the name itself, artificial, is not a very positive vibe. We feel it is something which is not real, something which is not so human. We want to keep and retain that human touch, so we have to name it in that way. Okay, so Ram, any words on that? In like 30 seconds before I see if I can bind off.
To me, it's not artificial intelligence, right? It's actually a real intelligence that we feed. So definitely, like the term that we use always makes a difference.
Mhm.
Um, I'm just quite interested about the moment on synthetic intelligence term name change, but all to say, there's nothing really like artificial intelligence, right? Like if you take a step back, what do you think is artificial here, right? Like it's the feeded intelligence. We as a human are providing that intelligence to a system to make the decision that probably we would make, and there is always going to be an error rate. So I don't really feel maybe artificial intelligence is just a real intelligence.
Okay, so on that note, we have our women tech maker Shweta also, and she would be joining on the stage for the last comment because she has been watching all the comments that our participants are asking. Probably she can add some final comments and final words. So can we have Shweta on the panel as well? Thank you, Shweta, for
Hello,
joining.
Siddesh. Hello, Eric. And
Hi,
I've been
Shweta.
listening all these
Hi,
talks
Shweta.
from like an hour or so, and it is really a great talk. I just wanna one question. I can ask it through the chat, but I wanna come and like ask you from the stage. So that's why I came in the last moment. So I just have a question, a quick one. So do you think artificial intelligence, like if I talk about the intelligence, so the people who are making like developing the artificial intelligence, don't you think they are more intelligent, and the people they are using that intelligence services, this artificial intelligence is making them less intelligent because now they are like fully dependent on the artificial intelligence. Like if I talk about a simple Grammarly, it's make our life very easy. When I type something, it corrects the grammar and gave me some like synonyms. So I'm like, cool. Why I'm going to the dictionary and like learning new words if Grammarly is doing all the things? So don't you think it is making end user less intelligent?
Okay, there was some issue with Shweta's mic, but I guess we got the message. So Sitesh, if you got the message, probably you can enlighten us on that.
I appreciate that you
Uh,
asked the question. Uh, I I appreciate it, and that's what I said. I recently heard, a few days back about usage of artificial intelligence in HR analytics, and the product team was talking about how salaries, performances of employees can all be rationalized using that artificial intelligence. But the situation is this: today there is a different HR team. Tomorrow the HR team changes. The top management team changes. The direction of the company changes. But the data collected by the artificial intelligence does not change. It remains in the system. And it, with its all kinds of biases put into that, nobody cleans the data for ages. The company's directions change, management change, but the data sets are not cleaned enough, and it takes time. And therefore, the biases that it carries, the employee is at the receiving end for that kind of a situation. Uh, uh, Similarly, like you said, Shweta, about Grammarly, I have a particular view about that. I can go to Grammarly and check my particular usage of English, or for my native Hindi or Japanese a bit. But if Grammarly uses an AI engine behind it, and it stores the way I ask questions, and it makes a profile of me, and that profile is being fed into some HR system, it is giving an information that whether I am good to learn languages, I'm not so great in learning languages, or probably my English is weaker grammatically, and therefore I am getting impacted for that particular aspect. So today, when we talk about technology, we are talking about the homogeneous nature of our human nature, and that is what AI could actually either enhance it, or it can be a controlling figure in somebody's hand. And that is where it all goes to be. I hope I could answer you.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
If I can just add to that, Shweta, to your
Yeah.
question, I think it depends on the implementation of the AI. Like Shweta has said, it's Grammarly, say for instance, for me, it adds no value in terms of actually just makes me weaker in terms of, you go about writing your sentences and so forth. It makes you lazy in your thinking and so. But I think when it's implemented in a case where for urban development or so, where you measure a certain region or so, whether it's water infrastructure, whether it's hospitalization, schooling, all of those sort of things, then obviously that's a different case altogether.
Yeah. So there should be some limitation where we are using the AI. Otherwise, it will be like we invented gun for the protection, and now it is all where around the globe gun violence is very common nowadays. So we have to be use it with some caution.
And I would again use one Shakespeare's language. Julius Caesar's wife is above the law. Please let us understand who controls these technology, who controls the data, who controls the pipes that carry those data. And that is where is the real fear. I'm not into fear mongering business. I want people to use technology. People should feel happy. And I like synthetic intelligence, what Vimal said. And I would propose for additional intelligence or probably some other word.
Yeah, just to add credits that the term synthetic intelligence, that part was brought by our audience, Melika. So yeah, and yes, I am aware that we have some tech groups around that. I'm getting some popping up question, but unfortunately, I cannot take it up. We'll have to wind up. That also means that we will definitely have to have another session for the other question that we cannot follow. And just to give you a heads up, I really got a very good area to work about adding empathy in artificial intelligence. That is a completely different segment where we can have a discussion. I would love to take it, but unfortunately, we don't have time, and we will have to wind up. And I just said it means that we will have another session, and the question which I'm going to take a note on, we will put across to you, to the panelists. Maybe we'll try to bring more folks in, and that way we can keep the discussion going and keep our and everybody's understanding getting better and better. So having said that, I will sincerely like to thank Eric, Sitesh for being part of the panel here. Thank you, Ram, for joining in as well, and Shweta pitching in with you cannot hold yourself while this discussion was happening, while you were watching and having control on the participation panel. Let's keep the ball rolling. Any final thanking word, Ram, to the team before we close off?
No, I just want to really thank Sitesh and Eric for joining us today. Uh, Again, we have gone global for the first time, and we would like your continued support to spread the message and share the opportunities that our group provides to the student community, so they can come and learn and get the benefits that at this point our local geographic community are getting. So once again, thank you so much for your time and taking all those questions. Appreciate the support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Just to tell everyone, real human, no artificial intelligence yet.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Take care. So with that, we will take off the stage to some of our promo videos for our audience to know what's coming next. And we would be requesting our participants to stay along. We will have some quick demo with some young innovators. They are amateurs, but still the very thought process they are trying to bring in by trying to work towards controlling drones through different medium, through web, through facial gestures, through brain. It's not about how much successful they are, it's about the very approach they are working. So stay tuned. We would be having that demo in another 10 minutes. In the meantime, you can have a look at our promo videos, what's coming in the evening session. Thank you so much. We all can drop off now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Mental illness is a huge problem, and we can really make huge strides in solving it by using artificial intelligence technology. But without the kind of data sharing that's necessary for machine learning to work, it simply won't be possible to solve this problem. I understand that people value their privacy, and of course so do I. But without data, machine learning technology simply is useless. It cannot be trained without the right kinds of data sets. Imagine how many other problems we couldn't have solved if it weren't for us sharing data for machine learning to be implemented.
Get ready for a cloud-first workplace. Jumpstart your career by signing up for a Google Cloud hands-on learning experience. Companies around the world are moving to the cloud. This is a unique opportunity to gain new skills and professional credentials. If you want to discover a career, scale your startup, or perform groundbreaking research that will change the world, this is the event for you.
technology cannot take more apart from that. So I think think that is the vision that we need to understand.
Nationalities and cultures and people here, and to me it's a safe place, especially when we're thinking about technology.
Still super proud of that video. Yeah. So, hi guys, my name is Jaden, and Luke should be here soon. And right now we're about, yeah.
Hey guys,
my name is Jaden. This wonderful, sorry. This wonderful man is Luke. Today we're going to be showing off a brain-controlled drone we built that can be controlled from anywhere in the world, as long as you have a solid internet connection. Now, our initial approach for doing this was very similar to what students had done at the University of Florida, where they'd basically just taken the developer APIs from various different headsets they had used, taken that data and passed it to a laptop, then used something called Mavlink, which is a industry standard communication protocol for drones, to send that to a drone. Unfortunately, the Muse developers have decided to discontinue the API, but thankfully, this man right here, sorry. Luke has managed to successfully devise a way to get those same brain signals by talking to the Muse over Bluetooth.
Yeah, so essentially what we're doing is I built a script that can get the data from this Muse device, and that data gets passed on to Firebase. We push it to the cloud, and then Jaden, who's in Toronto, I'm in SF, he can pick that data up, and then the drone can fly just based off this data that's being pushed.
Yeah. So the brain, so more specifically, the brain signals we are intercepting are the ones that control your facial gestures. So when you clench your jaw or blink your eyes or raise your eyebrows, that's the result of brain signals being sent to control your muscles. And thankfully, those are the best ones for the Muse to pick up. And also, that's also something that not everyone can trigger a certain pattern to trigger a certain drone, but everyone can clench their jaw or raise their eyebrows or blink their eyes. That's really what we were going for. And the way we did it is that once we got the data, the brainwave data, we added thresholds so that once it was above or below a certain value, depending on how hard or depending on how much the user was, tensing up or just relaxing, that would translate to different movements for the drone. So, for example, when the amplitude of the voltage of the brainwave, basically just how much it's generating, is under 40, then that translates to the drone going back. And when it's over 200, that translates to the drone going right.
Yeah. So essentially, we have different thresholds for different movements. Blinking causes a specific amplitude in the waves, whereas clenching your jaw or raising your eyebrows is also different amplitude. So we've filtered for these amplitudes on our side or on Jaden's side when he's flying the drone, and he's taking those data points and then thresholding them to see what commands are being sent to the drone.
Yeah. And the only reason we're able to do this, the only reason we're able to get in such real time is because of Firebase. So with a regular database service, like something like MySQL or MongoDB, you have a client that sends an HTTP request and gets a response back should that request be valid. The problem is that for this, where we want to be able to control the drone in real time, that's a bit too slow for us. And so the great thing about Firebase, though, is that it can update its data like near instantaneously. And the way it does that is by establishing a TCP connection, basically just a mutual handshake between a server and a client, and then establishing a port over which those two devices can communicate, and then just being able to endlessly communicate, through that mutual port. So the Firebase does this with every single client that signs on. So if you say we're running a sports app and you have 500 users, each trying to get the most up-to-date statistics, each of those users would establish a TCP connection with the Firebase database, and that would then pass and data them in real time.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, we could have been using a different type of database, like a Redis or MongoDB, but we decided to use Firebase just because it's super easy to get set up. And for this type of job, we want instantaneous data pushes and easy updating in the real-time database. So our database structure is just, we have one value nested inside our database, and it constantly changes every second based on the brainwave activity. And then Jaden is pulling that value every second to see what it says.
Now, because the drone we've chosen to use for this, Parrot AR2, is actually controlled by Wi-Fi, we can't. I can't exactly, and I need to maintain a stable network connection to it in order to, keep flying it. We can't exactly do this on one device because I need to be connected to both the. I need to be connected to both the drone and Firebase and the internet, so I can access Firebase at the same time. That is where this comes in. This is just a standard Arduino Node MCU chip with integrated Wi-Fi with an integrated Wi-Fi functionality. So what this does is that every 200 milliseconds, it pulls data from Firebase and sends that over a serial port to my laptop. And don't get me started on how difficult installing the drivers for that were. And so once my laptop gets that, it parses that data, converts it into a more readable value, and then it applies those thresholds to it in order to fly the drone, which it's connected to over the private network it spawns once it turns on. So if we could maybe, Luke, if you could maybe share your screen and we could get a bit of a visualization of what that brainwave data actually looks like.
Yeah, for sure. Just give me 1 second. I'm just starting up the app right now. Okay, let me show you my screen. So hopefully you guys can see this. Yeah, I'm just in incognito mode right now. So this is a app I built. Okay. It's just hosted locally at the moment. Sorry, there's a lot of tabs here. This is, okay. So I'm just gonna log in to the account that I've set up here. And as you can see, so there's this dashboard right here. And I'm just going to turn on my Muse and then click the Connect Muse button. And then my Muse device comes up in the top left corner here. Once I click pair, it's connected and you can see that data coming in live. So right now I'm not wearing the headband because I have headphones on, but I'm just going to take those off and wear them so you can see. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So you see it's so now you see if you do something like, you know, clench your jaw, it generates a little bit of noise, not too much.
Yeah.
Versus
So
yeah, if you do something like blink your eyes.
Shoot, looks like it's running a little bit slow. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so if I blink my eyes like that, you can see it spikes up.
Yeah. Versus if you do something like raise your eyebrows.
Like that's raising my eyebrows, and then clenching my jaw. Just be these small spikes.
Yeah.
So we threshold for those three, and then also use the baseline as a movement too. So if nothing is happening, then we also associate that to a movement, and then that way we can go in all four directions.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, I'm kind of wasn't smart because the drone is facing away from me in the default direction for when it's just, you know, at that baseline is backwards. So, you know, pick and choose, but yeah. Okay. So one hurdle we weren't quite able to overcome was, like I said, my laptop has to have a stable network connection to the drone while it's running. So because of that, I can't also be connected to Wi-Fi. So I can't actually, you know, stay on this StreamYard. So I'm going to join with another device that'll give you more of an external point of view, and then we're going to run this and, you know, show it in action. Okay. Yeah. And the device, and yeah, here we go. So you can see we have our drone set up right there, and I'm going to sort of walk you through connecting, turning it on. Right then. Here we go. Simple. Connect that, and once we have, once all four motors will, you know, just give us a little confirmation that, you know, they all function properly. There we go. And you got to put that prop protector on because this thing is quite prone to crashing. Okay, there we go. Now, while it's doing this, you see that you see those green lights? That is basically just confirmation that it's still on the Wi-Fi network. So this is the point where my other stream is going to cut off. But now I'm gonna just, you see we have access to the Wi-Fi drone, the Wi-Fi network right there. And once we connect to that, okay, good. We have a stable connection with the drone. And now let's now let's start our command script, and now we have initialized the connection with the drone. The way it's getting this data is over UDP, and so what UDP is, it's basically just pick like I said, TCP is like having a handshake between a server and a client, and then running and then picking a port. UDP is basically just picking a port, blasting data onto it, and seeing what fits, which wouldn't work if you're trying to do communication two-way, like between the client and the server passing data to one another. But if you're doing it between just one device and the client, that's only meant to receive data and not do much thinking for itself, like a drone, especially like a very bare bones one like this one, that is actually a lot more optimal, because if you lose a few packets of data, it's not going to completely mess up your connection. All right,
Now we're gonna now Luke, if you would now we're just gonna keep this simple. So I control manually take off and land, but all the directional control, like forward, backward, left, and right, that's all him. So we're just gonna do simple. I'm gonna take off. He's gonna go right. He's gonna go left, and then we're gonna land. Yes. So right now you can see he's going forward. And Luke, if you could maybe go right.
Hey, Jane, you're connected to the other account.
What's that?
So I'm just going to log into the other account. So
your audio is not that good.
So I'm just going to log into the other account. We have 2 accounts on the Muse thing. I'm currently logged into one of them. So for context, in the database, while we were playing around with this, hopefully my audio is okay.
Yeah, it's better now. Okay.
Okay, cool. When we were playing around with this,
yes,
we had created 2 accounts that we could use. So I'm just going to log into the other one because that's the one Jaden is pulling from right now.
So each account has its own separate rep. I've rigged up my script to pull from the rep from his other account. And so while that's happening, you got it?
Yeah, I'm just connected. One sec. Okay, now this should we should be getting data.
Now, once we hit this, right? Yeah. Yes. Now, so you see how the data is constantly changing. That is in correspondence with Luke's brainwave data. So right now you're going back.
So when I don't do anything, it should go backwards.
Yes. So I see right there.
But if I start blinking a lot, you can see on camera.
It goes right, forward.
Forward, forward, forward. When I blink a lot.
Yeah.
And I'll stop blinking and it should go backwards.
Okay. So
there you go.
Again, we're going to try to go backward as much as possible. Okay. So go right now.
So right would be raising the eyebrows like this.
Yeah. Now keep your eyebrows raised. Okay. So again, we're just going to do a simple takeoff, land, take off, right, left, and then land. Okay. Ready? You're going back right now.
Yep. The default is backwards. So I need you to take off
right,
first.
Go right. Okay. Please don't fly this into me again. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Let's jam. Okay, that's right. Go left. Go left. Go left. Go left. Go left. Go. Right. Luke, go left. Go left. Yeah, there you go. See, he's going left. All right. Okay, now go right again. Okay, go right again. Okay. We're just gonna land now.
Yeah, so it's a little bit difficult to control because of different aspects. One is concentration, but the other is just the latency between when I see his feed and what's actually happening. So when we push data to Firebase, there's about a couple second latency between the time I send it and Jane uses it to fly the drone. So for someone viewing on the other side, it looks like I'm still going right when I'm actually starting to go left, and it makes things a little bit confusing.
Yeah, exactly. So, should we let the audience decide on whether we do another one? All right.
Sorry.
Drop a comment in the StreamYard if you want to see another one. Okay. All right. Yeah, we're getting some.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So cool. Yeah, we're getting some good view. Okay. So yeah, we're just gonna do another one. Now, another hurdle we didn't really manage to get over is that every time the thing only works really one flight per every time we turn it on. So every time we turn it on, we reset it. For some reason, if we take it off to a flight, then it won't take off again. It'll still connect. So yeah, we have to reset every time we want to do a new flight, but it's not that big of an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we got the confirmation for the motors. Just put this right here. Yeah. Sorry, it's really cold in here. All right. So, again, we will connect to the drones network, and we're gonna initially good. We have initialized a connection. And Luke, are you streaming data?
Yep, it should be.
All right. Now I'm gonna turn on the script. Now he's going forward, left, right. Okay, now we're going to try forward and back, okay? So go forward.
Okay.
You're going left, right. You're still going right. Now you're going forward. Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Let's jam. Okay. Now forward. Forward. There you go. Oh, no, that's right. That's right. Luke. Okay. Go left. Go left. Go left. 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 Yes. Not that way. Not that way. Not that way. Okay. Yeah. You may have overcompensated a bit there.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have can tell by now, but Luke's kind of a crap pilot.
It's hard to pilot
Yeah.
with your muscles.
Okay. You know what? Screw it. Let's do one for good luck. All right. I'm going to reset the drone, and then we're going to try this again. This time we're just going to do another left and right. Those seem to work better. Probably because those have the least chance of going into my face. Or, my equipment.
Luke, would you mind explaining us to how the Muse API works a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So the way this works is the Muse connects via Bluetooth and sends packets over from its sensors to any computer that's connected to it. The way these sensors work is you have this conductive coil on these sensors. It's the EEG. And when the brain, when neurons are fired in sequence, there's a flow of electricity that actually happens as a byproduct. And these sensors can pick up on that flow of electricity. And the same flow happens also when you flex your muscles or, when there's stimulation in your muscles. So what we do is we put, or when I'm wearing the Muse, I make sure it's tightly wrapped around this muscle area, and it can pick up on that flow of electricity coming from the neurons inside, but also from the muscles. So when I flex my muscles, it creates a different action potential than when I have them relaxed, for example. And that data is being picked up from the Muse and then is sent to my computer in this case when I'm streaming in Bluetooth, and then those packets are taken from my computer and then pushed to Firebase.
Okay.
So for
Now,
those
Luke,
who
you ready?
don't know, Muse is what kind of product is it? What's the sole purpose of it?
It's supposed to be for meditation.
And it's measuring the alpha and the beta waves to see how you can focus and help meditate better. But this API was open, or is it available for anybody to play with?
No, I had to write my own scripts to get the data from the Muse.
Because the Muse developers are such incredible people, they decided to discontinue the developer API.
Okay. Anything else hardware-wise that you had to use to connect the two? Get the data out?
Yeah, first on the drone side, we had to use something called Mavlink, which is basically just it's an industry standard communication protocol that's used in a lot of consumer and even some commercial drones. And what it does is that it takes these little things called dialects, which is basically just a collection of XML files that are generated when you run one of their compiled scripts, one of their script in their compiled library. So in this case, I'm using their C++ one. So basically, what that does is that generates an XML file with, the drone's needed command, sends it over, sends it via UDP so that the drone can, actually do what you want it to do. So to say. So yeah, let's do one more. Okay. Again, just another simple. Up to another simple left and right. Okay, Luke, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, good. Got a stable connection to the drone's network. starting the command script, have initialized a good connection, pulling data from Firebase. Okay, yeah, we're good on that front. Okay, now Luke, go right. Okay, stay right. Okay, don't go forward or back. Okay, ready? You're going forward.
Yeah, you got to start at the.
Okay, let's go. All right, go right. Okay, now go left, 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 left. Okay, you're going forward. Look, go left, 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 left. Yeah, there we go. There you go. There you go. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Okay. Overcompensating a bit. Overcompensating a bit. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had to emergency land it there.
Okay. Well, clearly there's a lot to work on in terms of the flying and the controls, but just as a start, I think it's a pretty cool way of doing it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm joined back up. I'm joined back on my laptop and.
Yeah, so I guess.
So what other use cases do you see? Like, yes, you can control a drone. Obviously, it would be better if you can control the lag, meaning if you happen to be somewhere close by, you might be able to add more control on the drone itself, so you can coordinate maybe your fleet. I know Jaden kept mentioning that. What other purposes from this exercise do you think that you can implement into other use cases?
So I'm actually not sure that there's many use cases in this specific way of doing it. Like, the way we've done this project is more so as an interesting thing to do, not like what can we do with this. So it was, could we theoretically fly a drone with the brain at any distance away?
Yeah.
Our
initial idea was to do a brain controlled drone swarm, but capitalism, so we couldn't really afford that.
Yeah, it's too expensive. But the idea is not that this thing specifically could completely change an industry or something. I don't think it would. But just, I think pushing the boundaries a little bit farther in terms of what we could do. Whereas before we were thinking about, it has to be localized. We have to be in the proximity to do something involving drones. But knowing that we can do something from anywhere in the world means we could have drones flying overseas or flying here or there, being remotely controlled by anyone. So I think that's more of an interesting application than our specific brain controlled application, because realistically, it's going to be very difficult to control it with this thing. It's just way better with the joystick at the moment until we have implantable electrodes.
Even at the moment, I'm already applying in this tech. I registered in this drone contest, and I'm deciding I'm building a automated package delivery drone. And obviously, you can't, while it's going, you can't exactly send it flight commands via its Wi-Fi network because you're going to be too far away. So I'm actually going to be having a Raspberry Pi sat on top of it. That's going to be constantly pulling that data the same way my Node MCU did, which is going to translate into some commands to it.
Okay, so obviously I'm going to talk to the CEO of Muse. I know him really well. He used to work with me before. And I know the reason they shut down the API. Obviously, you need to support the community, and then you got to manage it. I'm going to do a shameless plug here. We have a session coming up next week, and it's the new company called Neurosity, and they built the hardware. They have an open API. I would love for you all to test it out. He's one of the Google GDEs as a co-founder. I'll just quickly throw the clip up here. So yeah, they're doing the scrolling left and right. Love to get you guys a demo if you're interested. Let me know. We can talk off stage. But I'd love to open this up to our audience and see what questions they have and any questions you all can answer. Okay, till we get any questions. Anything else?
Yeah, in part of this project was doing that. Part of it was like pushing the boundaries. Part of it was just like, I initially we were initially doing this like a while ago, back last year, but we just I decided to pick it back up now because of an article I read at the University of Florida who had done a similar thing, but their drones cost $500 each. Like seriously, you could get like 4 paired ARs with that, or like half of a DJI drone with Canadian shipping prices. I mean, like, I kind of wanted to, I also kind of wanted to just prove that, you don't really need, like large support or a big lab, or hell, even to be in the same country to be able to pull off incredible stuff like this.
In that case, let's talk a little bit about even Firebase's capabilities and the fact that you can create such a. Is there any gaps that you think we can fix? Anything that we can optimize with that?
Like at Firebase specifically?
Yeah. So I mean, you obviously pick Firebase because of its responsiveness. I mean, obviously there's going to be a little bit of a lag that can go both ways of you streaming the content to him or and then receiving it back. Anything else? Any other limitations that you ran into just on Firebase side?
Yeah. So right now we're doing the way it works is we push a data point every second. And the reason why we're pushing every second is because there's about a 1 second latency from the time it's sent to the database. So we can't really make like the drone fly at like millisecond latency. It's more so 1 to 2 to 3 second latency. And that's just because the nature of Firebase requests. And I think like on a technical standpoint, it's very difficult to reduce that latency time from 1 second to less than 100 milliseconds. But for flying a drone real time like this, we would have to figure out a better system where we can send commands every 100 milliseconds instead of every 1 second.
Yeah, I think also like the issue with finding latency in this project is that there are just like so many steps involved. Yeah, Luke transmitting his BCI data to his laptop. You got his laptop transmitting to Firebase. You got my Node MCU constantly pulling from Firebase. You got that sending serial data to my laptop, and then you got that sending instructions to my drone over UDP. I mean, like a lot. There could be latency in like any of those phases, and the problem is that every single bit just continually affects the next.
So we get a question from the audience. Ishan asks, has BCI reached a stage where we can accurately determine exactly where the user wants to do? Has the hardware been scaled down in terms of size where it is no longer intrusive to be used?
Well, they do have, so Neuralink is working on some cool stuff. So they have implants that are relatively small. And the way it works is they have these wires, so it stretches all across different parts of the brain, and they can detect things like they had a demo where a pig had an implant in its head, and then when its nose was touched, you could pick up on things like that. Nothing too extraordinary in terms of like what the pig was thinking or its emotions or anything like that. But there are some intersections of BCIs and machine learning that have happened where people can recreate images of what people are thinking about just from the brainwave data, and using like a machine learning model on top of that. So I think like they have GANs paired with BCI data, and that creates like images that people are thinking about. So we're not quite there in terms of like thoughts and incentives, and like me thinking about Jaden jumping upside down probably cannot get visualized, but there are some smaller things that can right now, or like general aspects that can.
And then the other thing is, I think thoughts are very difficult to control sometimes. Your brain wanders, so you might create so much interferences. That being said, Luke, Jen, it was been a pleasure. Thank you.
So can I just address this most recent thing in the chat? Yeah, it's looking into WebSockets. So the funny thing is, we actually this is actually kind of like the second iteration of our this brain control drone. We had a one built like about a month ago, I think, and that actually had, instead of a Node MCU, that actually had a Raspberry Pi that would pull data from Firebase and would transmit it to my laptop over a WebSocket that would then send it to my drone. Problem was, about 2 weeks before our presentation, the Raspberry Pi decided it didn't really feel like working. So yeah, we had to just find a little workaround. But yeah, if we find a way to nail that down and get it consistently, then yeah, that might really help with our latency problems.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for the question, John. And thank you, both of you. And hopefully we'll see you all again next time with something more advanced.
Yeah. All right. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Next, we have one of my colleagues from Google. Martin Omand is joining us from all the way from California. Martin, welcome to Toronto. It's so cold here.
It was cold here too in Mountain View, but I guess it's all comparative.
How are things? How is COVID? How is the family, and how everything doing?
Yeah, it's going well. You know, kids struggling with the virtual school, and yeah, hanging in there.
So, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, today I'm going to talk about scaling up your cloud application. So we've all built, hello world in the cloud, and some simple thing like put the REST API in front of a database and so on. But my talk will be more about, okay, so you've done that, you build version 1 of your application. Now how do you handle load, and how do you handle user input? How do you handle the challenges of coming out with version 2 and version 3 and so on?
Awesome. Okay, take it away, Martin.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so the talk is scaling up your cloud application. First, we'll talk about this. This is what I look like when I wear a denim jacket. My name is Martin Omander. I was born and raised in Sweden. I lived in Silicon Valley 20 years. Oh my gosh, time has passed. Time goes quickly. I worked at 3 startups as a software engineer, and I also worked a bit in consulting before that. But I've been at Google for these last 14 years. And now I've had a bunch of different jobs within Google. But my current job is Cloud Developer Advocate, which means that I work with developers who are building awesome stuff on top of the Google Cloud Platform and who want to go further, accomplish more by building on top of GCP. My previous job, by the way, in Google was for 5 years. I was supporting Google developer groups in North America, US and Canada, which was a lot of fun. And I've been doing cloud and serverless programming since 2007. 2007, the first version of App Engine came out, which was the sort of original platform as a service. Before, right around the time the term cloud computing was coined. So I love serverless computing. Makes you way more productive, I think, than managing servers. So this talk, so developers right now we are still, as a collective, we developers are still figuring out this cloud computing thing, because there are certain things in computer science that are well known and that have been around for a while, like compiler design, for example, is well known. Theory of compiler design goes back to the 1960s. People are creating amazing compilers, well-known area. But cloud computing is really, 2007, as I mentioned there, but really people started doing it in earnest maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little less. So, and new products are coming out all the time in cloud computing. So we as developers still trying to figure this out. We are matching and mixing, and sometimes it turns out awesome, sometimes it blows up in our faces. And this talk will be about sharing some of the times it blew up in my face, and sometimes when it came out awesome. And I want to share with that in the spirit of us learning from each other, so you don't have to make all the mistakes I did. So truth in advertising, this talk will be about how to cope with as your cloud application grows in size and complexity. When I talk about cloud application, what I mean is like a backend for web application or backend for mobile application. And this is hard-earned lessons from that many mistakes I've done and many mistakes I've seen customers do with GCP. This is not about how to tuning your app's performance. Plenty of talks around that. It's not about how to write your client code. Plenty of talks about that. And there will be not a single line of code in this talk, which is unusual for me, but there it is. Getting version 2, version 3 of your application of a cloud application requires some thought and planning. And that's what we'll go through in this talk. So first off, we have a very wise man from Alberta, Canada. He basically predicted all of internet in the 1950s and 1960s. His name is Marshall McLuhan. They call him the prophet of the information age. He had many great quotes. You will see maybe quotes like, the medium is the message. What medium you choose to push out a message affects the message itself. Lots of good, smart things he said. But one of his other great quotes, I should say, is the social and educational patterns latent in automation are those of self-employment and artistic autonomy. So he's obviously an academic, so he put this in a kind of roundabout way. But what Marshall McLuhan is saying here is automation can lead to artistic autonomy. And that is very true in cloud computing. So in this talk, I'm going to go through this list of 10 different lessons I've learned, and I've learned together with customers or I've learned by myself. The very first is section is about how to automate your way to artistic autonomy. Because we are at heart artists. We are building code. We want it to be beautiful. We want it to work well. And we want to be creative. The way to become creative is to automate away the drudgery. Let's talk about how to do that. I mean, it's one thing to say automate, another thing to actually do it and do it right. So automate monitoring, you should of course automate monitoring, but let's talk about how to do it in the right way. So I built a beautiful dashboard for one of my applications, and then the application started failing and the dashboard didn't help me at all. And everything became slow and costs increased and so on. And I think the lesson learned from this is that you can build all the dashboards and reports that you want, but they are kind of useless if you don't have automated alerts. So make sure you have the automated alerts, because you might build all these great dashboards and reports, and you will check them every day the first week, and then you will start checking them every few days, and then you'll check them maybe once a week, and then you'll forget that they're there. But when something breaks, it's not good enough to go into your dashboard a week later and see that it broke. You need an automated alert right there. So the way to do this is, if you're running something in Google's cloud, in the Google Cloud Platform, first install the Google Cloud mobile app on your phone. It is a fairly simple app. One of the great features of it is that it gives you an alert on your phone if there's a new error that shows up in your cloud application, a new error that it hasn't seen before. Super useful. I wish I had that when my app started failing. That's step number one. Super easy. That's like 4 taps on your phone and you're done. And you get some alerting. Then you probably want more advanced alerting than that. That means going to read up about Google Cloud Monitoring. This is all built into the G Cloud platform. You just have to actually set it up and configure it. And then you can fine-tune exactly what alerts you're getting. So automate monitoring means set up automated alerts, not just dashboards. Next one is automate testing. Okay, so so much has been written about how to automate testing, but I would say a lot of test automation is useless. You need to automate the right way. Otherwise, it's just drudgery and just make work. So I didn't have end-to-end tests in one of my apps. I shipped breaking changes many times in my cloud app. Unit testing, all the unit tests worked beautifully, but it was how these pieces fit together. I mean, a user doesn't care if all the unit tests show up green, but the application is broken. Then the unit tests are useless. So now when I build something, I try to prioritize these end-to-end tests. Unit tests, sure, I do those if I feel that they help me develop faster, but I don't write them for existing code I already have or well-known code. I try to focus on the end-to-end tests because that's what users care about. Just try to simulate users, because testing is a rabbit hole of infinite depth. So you can spend, and I have spent, way too much time on setting up tests that didn't help me any. So use unit tests when help you write code faster, but focus on those end-to-end tests. Here, what you should do, and I'm still actually looking for this, finding a robust end-to-end no-code web testing tool, or if you're writing mobile app, mobile client web testing tool. There are tools that are end-to-end, and there are tools that are no-code, and there are tools that are robust. I've yet to find one that is all of these things. But there are some, with Selenium and so on, you can set up some things here. Ideally, though, I'm still looking for this, a tool that is no-code as well. So it becomes very easy to update it. And so that actually your non-developer friends in your organization can set up tests. End-to-end testing, more important than unit testing, I think. Next, in 1920s, a very smart man lived in Prague, Franz Kafka. He had some very smart things to say about productivity. Productivity is being able to do things that you were never able to do before. So having a tool that, adds semicolons automatically for you, yeah, that's nice, but that's not really productivity. You become like 1% more productive. Productivity is those big leaps where you actually can do completely different things because your tooling, your automation helps you so much. And there are certainly things you can do when you're building cloud applications that help you be more productive. The two things I've noticed is, first, you need to stop and think, are you productive or just busy? Very often we're just busy. Second one is to boost your productivity is to understand and love IAM. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, stop to think, are you productive or just busy? A few months ago, I read up about this awesome technology called VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. Sounds exciting, sounds great. I want to have that in my cloud application. I started researching it, I started figuring out how to build it, and then I realized, yeah, this would keep me busy for weeks, but would it actually make me productive? Would this result in something that end users noticed? No. So I gave up, I put it aside. That was a good thing. I could have been very busy on virtual private clouds, but it wasn't the right solution for my application. So I would have been busy, but not productive. And this is a problem with us engineers. We are used to solving the problems we know how to solve. So for some of you, that will be setting up virtual machines. Some of you listening to this right now, you are awesome at setting up virtual machines and tuning Linux just right. Or maybe not virtual machines. Maybe you are great at networks. You are great at setting up these virtual networks and VPNs and private and bridges and things like that, and software-defined networking maybe. That's great. Just be aware of your bias. You now have a bias. Whenever a problem comes along, the first thing you think about is, oh, how do I set up the virtual machines? Or how do I set up the networking? Or how do I, do X? How do I write Java code for this? We're used to solving the problems we know how to solve. Often, the things that we're used to doing are not the thing that puts us in a special category. It's not the secret sauce. If you're working for a company right now or you're self-employed, is your secret sauce that you are the best in the business in setting up Linux virtual machines? If the answer is yes, then you should build a company around that. Most of the time, you're not the best at this. Most of the time, this is just make work that you do because you're used to it. See if you can just offload all that make work on somebody else so you can be productive. The way I see this is whenever you can, go with serverless computing, where deployments, uptime, restarts, patching, networking, all of that has been taken care of for you. You may not feel very, you won't feel very busy, but that means you have extra time for actually being productive. So whenever you start a new project, I would urge you, start looking at the serverless products. Here are the 3 serverless compute products that are part of the Google Cloud Platform. If you use another cloud platform, they have similar products to these. Look at the serverless option first. See if you can build your backend, your cloud backend in a serverless, on serverless product. If you can, great. If not, well, then you drop down into doing virtual machines or real bare metal machines, whatever. But look at these cloud functions. If you can, if your backend can be written in cloud functions, it is super simple to deploy new versions and to maintain code and to locally test and everything. And you just get rid of so much extra work. All right, there was a second part to this. Understand and love IAM. If anybody has a tip on how to pronounce that better, IAM. This is not very exciting, I'm afraid. But we all need to understand and love it, because it has to do with access rights, privileges, roles, responsibilities that you set up in your cloud project. Google Cloud has it. All the other cloud vendors have it too. You need to really understand how this works. I thought to myself, this is boring. I don't want to read up on this. And this is what happened. I accidentally deleted thousands of accounts from a production database. I thought it was the test database. I thought I was just cleaning out the test database. But I was actually deleting real customers' data, and everybody was super upset with me, and it was very embarrassing. The thing here, though, is that if I'd set up that correctly, I wouldn't, as a developer, I wouldn't be able to go into the production database and delete stuff. This is where we need to set this up correctly. And we are not protecting against hackers. You might think that you're setting up these all these roles and responsibilities to protect from hackers. No, you're setting it up to protect yourself against yourself or your dear coworkers who make mistakes. Never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. I was stupid and deleted a bunch of data. IAM should have been set up to prevent me from doing that. Now I've read up on it, so now I understand it, and I've set things up so I can't delete data. So you set up your environments deliberately. You set up like one production environment, like one Google Cloud project that is production. And developers have very little access, maybe no access to it. They can't see the data. They definitely can't modify the data. Maybe it's just a sysadmin who can see the data there. Then you have test environments. Developers, you have one or more test projects. Developers can do a little more there. Maybe they can see the data, or maybe they can even update the data, because this should be test data, not real customer data. And then you have one developer project per developer, and they have full access, can do anything in those projects. That way you prevent mistakes, costly mistakes. And IAM, understand it well for the platform you're using. If you're using Google Cloud, there is a Coursera course about IAM. I took it belatedly. I should have done it before, but I'm glad I did eventually. All right, so we're going back in time. We started with Marshall McLuhan, 1960s, 1920s, we had Franz Kafka. Way before even the birth of Christ, we had a very smart guy named Diogenes. He said, we have 2 ears and 1 tongue so that we would listen more and talk less. Diogenes obviously didn't know anything about cloud computing, but this holds true for cloud computing as well. You need to listen to your users. And it's easy to say, listen to your users. Yeah, do more of that. So let's talk about what that actually means, because you have to do, again, you have to do it the right way, or you're not actually doing it at all. Zero effort feedback, shadow your users, and personal data. We have to deal with those three things. Let's talk about the first one, zero effort feedback. So whenever you build an application, whenever you're building a backend, there probably is a front end out there somewhere. There could be an admin front end. It could be a mobile app. It could be a web application for end users. Somewhere there is a front end into the system. Even if you're building some big old data processing, data warehouse in the back, somebody is looking at that data somewhere. Wherever your data, wherever your application meets the users, you need to put a zero effort feedback feature. So add a feedback form. This is super easy with Google Forms. Just add, say, like feedback, a button or a link or something, takes the users to this feedback form. You set that up in Google Forms, very easy. So people can easily report in, and they don't have to figure out what your email address is or anything like that. This saved me. I had a feature that worked great with my developer account. So I didn't know it was broken for everybody else. Everybody else in the world that this feature was broken for. Fortunately, I had this feedback form, and the user told me, like, hey, dude, this is broken. And then I could fix it. Otherwise, this might have stayed broken for years. And the harder you make it for, or I should say the other way, the easier you make it for users to give feedback to you. Let's plug in the battery. Power. There we go. The easier you make it for people to get back to you, the more feedback you will get. And you want more feedback. So really try to make it as easy as possible. Minimum friction. Yeah, because you won't find all the errors in testing. I didn't, because I tested with a test account, and this feature worked with that test account, but for nobody else. Set up a feedback form in Google Forms. If you have a web client, you can actually capture the browser's user agent string in that form. You can preset one of the fields to navigator.useragent. And then you can even, if you want to be real fancy, you can have a little Google app script that translates that user agent string. Like it will be something like Mozilla 5.0 / blah, 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 blah. You can translate that into the different types, human readable forms of browsers. So we'll know that this is Firefox version 67. There are APIs out there you can call to get that human readable form. So then you can very easily see that, oh, this app, I get a lot of feedback from people saying my app is broken, and they're all using Internet Explorer. Okay, then you know that it is for that browser that your app is broken. All right, there were three parts to this. The third one is personal data. Personal data is, no, we're only going to the second part. Shadow your users. Your users are inside your application. You are seeing, well, you, as in your code, is seeing everything that the users are doing. So you should take note of that. Whenever I add a new button to any of my applications, I add Google Analytics code around that, so I know how many people click it. And this has helped me a lot. One app I wrote had Twitter integration. I was very happy with the Twitter integration. I spent a lot of time on it. I was going to update it and make it even better. And then I saw that virtually nobody, less than 1 in 1,000 users actually used that Twitter integration. So I could focus on something else. Or, for example, I saw that I had Facebook login in my application, and boom, one day that just stopped working last January. Overnight, all of a sudden, that success ratio in that funnel of start login and finish login successfully went, from 80% to 0% overnight. and Facebook had turned off my app for some reason. So these things you need to know. And the way to deal with to track these things is with analytics. And then you use that data to inform your developer priorities, and you create funnels. Also track client errors. You can do that in a web application. You can say like window.onError equals function, and then in that function you make a call to, for example, Google Analytics and send an error event. So definitely you should shadow your users. You set up Google Analytics, or if you're using, if you're building a mobile app, you set up Firebase Crashlytics. Those are free. Those are easy to set up. That's like 3 lines of code and you're done. If you want to take it to the next level, you should consider more advanced, non-free tools like LogRocket, for example. I had great success with that tool. That is a tool that for web applications, it records everything user does. So it creates a little video for each user. So you can actually see how they moved their mouse across the screen and where they clicked and where they were frustrated and moved their mouse around or clicked 100 times on one button. All of that shows, so basically you're sort of looking over the shoulder of your user. Super useful. Shadow your users. That is the takeaway. Now we're getting to personal data. Personal data is a liability. So I used to have hundreds of thousands of email addresses in the database for one of my applications. That was scary. This is personal data. If there had been a data breach somehow, this would have been terrible consequences for me. So PII, personally identifiable information, that is liability. You need to learn about GDPR. If you have users in Europe, you need to figure out who can view the database. Maybe developers shouldn't be able to look at the database if there's personal PII in the database. You need to set up roles and responsibilities in more advanced ways. You will need a data protection officer. You will need to do all this extra work that you can just skip if you have less or no PII in your database. So the good part here is that a lot of modern single sign-in solutions let you ignore PII. So for example, if you use Firebase login, you can say, yes, I want the user's email address and use that as a key or in your user database. You can also, or you can say, ignore the email address. I don't want it. It's PII. It's dangerous. If you're not going to email them anyway, don't even store it. So it's a liability. Instead, you can say, give me the ID, and you get a 12-digit number, and that is your ID. There's no way to know who that is, but you can still store everything for that user. So you know that user 123456 logged in. 123456 has this data saved in our system. Do that, your users will be much happier knowing that you're not storing any personal data about them, and it will make your life easier too. All right. There's also mistakes and failure. And if you do these things that I just talked about, there will be fewer mistakes, less failures, but there will always be mistakes that you need to plan for. And it turns out that a computer lets you make more mistakes faster than any invention in human history, with the possible exception of handguns and tequila. I've not said that. A wise person I overheard at a party said this, but this is very true when it comes to cloud computing. So assuming we don't have any handguns or tequila around when we're writing our cloud applications, the computer is your enemy. The computer will make lots of mistakes for you in a hurry, and you will need to clean it up afterwards. So you need to plan for failure. That means backups, understanding that code is a liability, and have a good deployment strategy. Let's dig into those and talk about each one of those. So with backups, it's very easy to set up. Well, it's very easy to think you have backups, but you don't. There's no try, only do when it comes to backups. Again, this is a mistake I made. I'd set up I'd set up backups, but I hadn't tested restoring a backup. It turns out I was when things went south, I was able to restore a backup, but the backups worked in a different way than I had expected, which was honestly fairly stressful, because you're in this situation where users are clamoring for their data and you lost it and you're restoring backups, and all of a sudden things work differently than you thought they would. This is not the time where you want to either discover that your backup doesn't work or that it works in a different way than you thought. So you should take backups, great. But if you're taking them manually, you don't actually have backups. You need to automate your backups. Okay, cool, you've automated your backups. Well, you don't actually have backups still. You need to test restoring them, test recoverability. Now you have true backups, automated backups, tested backups. So you know how they work, you have a procedure for how to restore them. You can do it, somebody else in your organization can follow that procedure. Fortunately, all the databases in Google Cloud Platform, they include, they make it easy to set up backups. So Firestore is one database. Cloud is a NoSQL database. Cloud SQL, obviously a SQL database. A bunch of other databases built into Google Cloud Platform. They all let you set up automated backups into cloud storage. Cloud storage is sort of a file storage area within your Google Cloud account. So you should automate those backups, and then so like every midnight, take a backup of the whole production database, for example, or every 2 hours, or yeah, depending on your organization. And then you should maybe once a month, you should practice restoring a backup so that you know that the backups actually work in the way you expect them to. All right, the next one was code. Code, just like personal information, code is a liability. And some developers don't like to hear that, because as developers, this is what we produce. So basically, we are all sitting around at our desks creating liability for organizations all day. We need to have less liability and more productivity. So here's an example. I started designing a system that would alert me anytime there was less than 100 users in my web application. Smart. It's a good idea. If there's less than 100 users, something's probably broken. Great, I could write code for that. But then it turns out that I could take Google Analytics. I could connect it to a third-party service called Stats Glitch that looks at glitches in your stats, that could notice glitches. And then I could connect that to Phasier, which could send out a text message to me. So instead of writing a bunch of code, which would create liability, I was able to just do click, 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 and I had the same functionality without code. Because if you write code and you're an average developer, kind of like I am, like industry average, for every 100 lines you write, you will create about 3 bugs. Costs a lot of money and time to find those bugs. And those bugs can sort of create ripple effects into other parts of your system. Also, let's say you write the 100 lines of code, you find the 3 bugs that are in there, you fix them. Still, this is an expensive proposition, because those 100 lines of code have to be tested and maintained forever. So it needs more testing work, it means more maintenance work. Let's say you upgrade to a new version of your language, your framework, or whatever. This code might now break, everything needs to be tested. Your organization would be better off not having those 100 lines of code. So as coders, we need to do less coding, create less liability for organizations. And there's good news here. There are many startups that have surprisingly good services and low prices, like StatsGlitch and Phasier. And there are hundreds of them out there that do amazing things that you can use instead of laboriously writing your own bug-filled code. Also, many of these are funded by rich venture capitalists, so their prices are excellent. I think StatsGlitch, what was it, $7 a month? That's nothing for an organization, for a company, right? So use them. Let the venture capitalists pay for your cloud infrastructure. Finally, we have deployments. So deployments are always scary. I remember in a company I used to work at, we would have these, oh my gosh, we'd had these deployments. We started at 2 a.m. and then it would take like 2 hours to do a deployment. And sometimes there were rollbacks that would take 3 hours, and the whole team had to be online for this. And the day after, everybody was just wiped out and couldn't work. And deployments are scary and expensive and risky, I should say. So you need to make them less scary. And the way to do that is have smaller deployments and more frequent deployments. So I found that, and I didn't invent this. This is, smarter people than me at Google do this, and at other large organizations. You store a lot of config values in your database. You can have like feature flags or config values, so they're not in your code, they're in your database. So it's easy to turn things on and off. So now you can do things like, I want the alternate checkout flow in my e-commerce app. That's a database toggle. So now you can deploy all the code in weeks and months past. Nobody's seeing that code yet. Nobody's using it. Maybe your QA people can look at it, but nobody's using it. And then you can turn it on for a few people. If it breaks, you can quickly turn it off again without having to do new deployments. Because you can't find all the bugs there. Even if you spend all of your time writing tests, you're not going to find all the bugs. Also, rolling back is hard. Rolling back in code, rolling back to a previous version is really hard, because you've basically built up this software development organization that it's like a factory. You have all these conveyor belts going in one direction in your factory. And they're all going towards pushing code out into the cloud. And if you're going to do rollback, that is kind of like saying, oh, hey, stop the factory, make all the conveyor belts go backwards for a bit. That would be chaos in the factory. Far better to always roll forward and always have feature flags around those new features you have. So if something breaks, you just toggle something in the database and boom. Now the old code path is enabled again without a new deployment. Also, of course, use canary deployments. So this is where, and Google does this all the time as well, 1% of users get the new functionality. If that works, then maybe 5% get it. If still nobody's yelling and screaming, turn it up to 10%, and eventually over time you flip everybody over to the new version, but do it slowly. So if you have a terrible bug, only 1% of your users were affected, and you can easily just turn that dial back. So there's good news here. One of these serverless products that I mentioned before, Cloud Run, lets you split traffic by % across multiple versions. So you can say, like, here's version 1.0 of my app, here's version 2.0. Send this percentage to 2.0, send the 90% to the old version, gradually turn it up. If you're writing a mobile app, you can do really cool things with remote config in Firebase. You can say, for example, my login button should be blue, and then you change something, and blue is a configurable value. And then you can sit on your at home and pull up the remote config panel and say, no, login button should be red instead. Flip it, and boom, all the apps are now showing red login button in the field without you having to push out a new version of the code. Be smart about this. Make your deployments smaller and more frequent, less scary. So with that, I'm nearing the end of my talk. I'm going to ask if there are any questions. Please put them in, I think it was in the chat. And I'd be happy to answer them. It looks like we have some time. But as parting words here, I would like to say that cloud computing is an amazing area right now. It's never been a better time to be a developer. The tools are so good. There's so much productivity, and and creativity, and this is a relatively new field. So you can actually experiment and come up with amazing stuff that nobody else has come up with. Do some things I suggested here. Come up with your own best practices. We are far from having them all, but it's a great time for creativity in the cloud. Be a crazy mad scientist, mix and match. Some things will blow up. That's okay. Learn from it and move on. And these were the 10 things I talked about. And now I'll be ready for questions if there are any. So I'm not seeing the chat, but maybe somebody could tell me if there are questions in the chat or wherever they show up.
Martin, they're showing up on the screen. Do you see a screen?
Pardon?
Do you see the StreamYard screen or no?
I don't see the screen.
Okay,
no. So maybe you could tell me if there's anything.
I'm going to jump on to John's first question. When setting up monitoring, how do you make sure your alerts don't become noisy? And how do you make it also for cheap?
Yes, right. Alerts becoming noisy is a major problem because then people start ignoring the alerts. You just have to be really disciplined about have a sort of a weekly process or some sort of thing that you change alerts over time and be disciplined and say that, okay, on Fridays we review alerts and we change them, and don't let noisy alerts stick around. Have a work process around it. Big problem, I agree. But I think that's the only way to do it.
He got a second question. What is it like? What's a typical day as a cloud developer advocate?
Oh, what's a typical day? Yeah. Well, it used to be that I would get on a plane and fly to Toronto, for example, and give an awesome talk and see all you amazing people in the hallway after the talk. And now it is a lot of recording videos in my lovely home office here. So it's a lot of, I guess, a lot of it is writing code, writing samples, and then a lot of it is then so technical work. And then the other half is getting that technical work out there. For me, I record a lot of videos. If you want to know more about serverless on GCP, you should check out Serverless Expeditions. That is my YouTube series. Every Thursday, new episodes with myself and a coworker, and we talk about different kinds of serverless. So yes, some of my coworkers write blog posts. I create videos. That's a typical day. This week I recorded 3 videos.
That's awesome. Actually, I like your setup. You're pretty prepared to do presentations on there. I got a personal question here. We have a lot of, especially since I work with a lot of students, I think some of the tips you shared are good to start early on. Big discipline when you start becoming a developer. Any other tips that you can share for somebody who hasn't touched the cloud yet, or what was that progression for you was like?
Yeah. So I've seen that's a really good question, and I see, especially as a student or me as a learner, because a lot of these products, I mean, 2 years ago I didn't know a lot of these products. 3 years ago, a lot of these products didn't even exist. Mm-hmm. So we are all perpetual learners here, and not only students. But I think that the biggest takeaway for me is when you're learning this stuff, Coursera courses are great. Reading code others have written, all that is great. Reading blog posts and videos and all that is great. But what really makes you learn at least for me, and I suspect many others, is that sure, it's good to read up and hear about others and what they're doing, but to actually make it really click, you need to build a hobby app of yourself. I mean, it could be that you're working in an organization and they say, you know, we need this cloud app, and then you do it at work. Or if you're a student, or like me, Google didn't force me to build anything. I built a hobby application, and then you really have the motivation to figure these things out.
Actually, it's interesting you said that, because that way you get to see it end to end. Otherwise, you're just a little cog on this whole chain of command, and you might not see where the value is added. So that's a great tip. And I don't think we got any other questions coming in. Once again, thank you so much, Martin. Always a pleasure to have you and share your thoughts, share your experiences with us. Hopefully, we'll get to do this in person next year. And that being said, we got a. So we got the next session coming up. Vimal is going to jump in soon. And from all of us, thank you so much. See you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Vimal, how are we doing? So for those who are tuning in, next session is going to be our hands-on workshop, the second part. If you didn't get a chance to plug into the first one, Vimal can fill us in. Vimal, over to you.
Yeah, sure, Madhusha. Thank you. So far we had been doing this array of different various sessions of various nature, and we are getting good traction once we are recording the session. People are watching it from different time zone at different time, and that's a great thing to happen. So what's going to happen next? So right now we'll take a pause on the YouTube streaming. That is for the speaking panel session. We will resume back in evening. We will have a Women in Tech event, and one of our key highlighted event would be Tanmay Bakshi's event, and he's a young boy and had been motivating young folks for a long time. We all will love to hear to him. So that's a not to miss event at 4, I guess 4:30. Yeah, at 4:30 EST time, Tanmay Bakshi will be speaking. Then we will have a WTM event briefly, and finally we will have the closing notes. So though it is the end of the session, don't miss it. It is going to be very valuable. Right now, those folks who are joining us to the Zoom, already their communication is sent. Within 5 minutes, we will be getting live on Zoom for the workshop folks for the day 2.
Is it Zoom link? Is it the same as yesterday's, or is it a different link?
No, it's a different one. I will share it with you, Madhusha, and you can further cascade it to those who need it. However, for new folks, it's not going to be very useful, but they're more than welcome to join. But for those who had joined yesterday, they can at least get a communication and they can join with us.
Okay. So any students who are listening in, obviously, if you didn't get a chance to check it out yesterday, we created this solution challenge, a coding challenge for all the students. And I'm going to put the link on our Discord server for that. And you're welcome to join that little subgroup that we create. If I can get the Discord server up right now, it's the link. This is the link below. You can join it. Make sure you go through the rules, read the rules, be nice to people, agree to it by clicking on the check mark and the green check mark. And then when you go to stage 1 and the area there, you'll see all the instructions there. Chloe and Rena is already there answering any questions. We did extend the deadline by a few hours. We already got a few submissions submitted already. It's a great challenge put together by these two DSE leads. So go through it, ping us there, ask them questions, and then we'll get back on track around 4:30, if I'm correct.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah,
4:30 Eastern Standard Time. Yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
And till then, have a great afternoon, and we'll catch up with you all in the evening.
Absolutely. Thanks, Madhusha. Let's catch up again in evening. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Mental illness is a huge problem, and we can really make huge strides in solving it by using artificial intelligence technology. But without the kind of data sharing that's necessary for machine learning to work, it simply won't be possible to solve this problem. I understand that people value their privacy, and of course so do I. But without data, machine learning technology simply is useless. It cannot be trained without the right kinds of data sets. Imagine how many other problems we couldn't have solved if it weren't for us sharing data for machine learning to be implemented.
Get ready for a cloud-first workplace. Jumpstart your career by signing up for a Google Cloud hands-on learning experience. Companies around the world are moving to the cloud. This is a unique opportunity to gain new skills and professional credentials. If you want to discover a career, scale your startup, or perform groundbreaking research that will change the world, this is the event for you.